Mr. Chairman, the meeting is yours. We're live.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. It is now 6:32. All right, and I'm going to do a determination of the quorum. Mr. Reyes.
Here.
Mr. Kinney.
Here.
Mr. Pacelli.
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Mattson.
Here.
Mr. Ozenkowski.
Here.
Secretary Lukowitz.
Here.
Vice Chairman Karunian.
Here.
And Chairman Flynn is here. We have a full quorum of 9 tonight. Okay, if we could stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is our first meeting from 21. I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year, and I hope everybody's been safe. All right, we're gonna start with number 4, approval of minutes. That would be our December 16th, 2020 meeting. Would I have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I second.
And I have a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none? Mr. Reyes?
I got abstained, but I wasn't here.
Okay, Mr. Reyes is abstained from that. Mr. Kenny?
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Mattson?
Aye.
Mr. Ozenkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Lukowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Colonian?
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, the minutes, the motion is passed for the minutes. Okay, number 5, we have a bonds resetting. It's Green Farm Estates, owner North Road Land Company, LLC, applicant same. It's a resetting of the original bond amounts for phases 1 and 2 of an approved 17-lot residential, single-family major subdivision with street creation, AP 24 lots 26, 31, zone R20, location of Old North Road. The original total phase bond setting was 841,240, and the new one is 503,781. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Good evening, Attorney Nicole Martucci on behalf of the owner applicant. How are you?
Hi, Nicole, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yeah, before the board is a request for a bond reduction. The owner has been working with the town engineer to come up with the appropriate amount of a bond reduction based on some major items that have been done. The town engineer submitted a memo, and we have no objection to the proposed bond reduction as set forth in the town engineer's memo. So we would rely on that memo and ask that the bond be reduced by 337,459 for a new bond amount of 503,781.
Okay, this is pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any discussion on the board before I ask for a motion? Okay, hearing none, could I get a motion on this bond reduction, resetting?
Chairman Flynn, I'll make a motion, favorable motion for Green Farm Estates, AP 24 lots 26 and 31, zone R20, for a reduction in bond from $841,240 to $503,781.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Kenny. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Mattson. I'll go for a roll call on this. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Yeah, aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Clunian, and Chairman Flynn also says aye. Motion is passed.
Thank you very much. It was nice to see you all again.
You too.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Have a
Mr.
good
Chair,
evening.
may I please?
I'm sorry?
Yeah. No, I'm all set, Nicole. Thank
Oh,
you.
all right. Thanks, Russ.
Ron,
Yeah. Yes,
can I have the floor for a minute?
absolutely.
Chris? Duhamel? Can you unmute, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Who just logged in using your clone?
Maybe Joe, my son?
No, that's not Joe. A little older. Did you give it to somebody?
Tom Cronin and Rick Pizzuko? Rick,
I don't know, Rick. Is that Rick? Somebody,
he's a client.
I don't know. I just saw him come in. I didn't know who he was. I'm just questioning.
Yeah, I hope I'm not being counterfeited, but
Well, it has your name. That's why I'm saying. He's muted, whoever he is.
just Joe Lombardo, Rick
Chris, can't
Pizzuko.
you see him?
Chris, sorry, this is Richard Pizzuko.
All right.
I don't know, I'm not, this is the first time I ever Zoomed, I'm sorry, so.
Yeah, we just didn't know who you were, and I just didn't wanted to find out what was going
My
on.
daughter's teaching me right now, so.
All right, we're gonna put you back on mute, and we're gonna continue the meeting.
All right, very
Thank you.
Sorry.
Get back on mute.
No
In
problem.
in the future, if you need someone else in the meeting, please send the email address and the contact info so we can do it and add them into the meeting correctly.
I will. I'm sorry. Stand corrected.
No problem.
We set to go? We all set?
All set, Ron.
Okay, thank you. All right, under new business and discussion and/or action, we have a 6.1 pre-application plan, development plan and review for Sunset Tint and Sign relocation. Owner Merrill J. Anderson Jr., applicant Sunset Tint and Company, proposed merging of lots 34, 35 and construction of a 4,800 square foot building for a tint and sign business. AP 46 lot 34, 35 zone general business, and it's on Main Street. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Thomas Cronin, 1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island, for the owner and applicant.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. So no one needs a site walk for this piece of property, right? This is the
No.
back lot of the former Merrill Motors. When the two lots are merged, it'll be about a half acre. The Sunset Tint and Sign operate currently directly across the street on Main Street, and they have another location in Cranston. They're looking to purchase the site and develop the site into a unified operation for them. They want to consolidate in Coventry, which is a nice thing for our town. What they want to do is build a single 80 by 60 building with access off of Whipple Street, but with the front facing Main Street. It's about a 20-foot high prefabricated, pre-designed building. There's an elevation in the package. It's got a low stone front and colored side there. The entrance, like I said, would be from Whipple Street because it's for a little further away from Sandy Bottom Road in that light. The building size and the positioning of the building conform to the general business zone. There's not really any concerns with that. There are some waivers that we are requesting, and this is kind of an unusual situation in that the waivers that we're requesting will actually all be site improvements. So currently, the lot is almost all paved. It's asphalt. It was used as a car storage. There's a small crushed stone area toward the back of the lot. That's the only non-asphalt area. So the proposal would be to remove a couple of light stanchions, place the building on the lot, and actually remove some of this asphalt and replace it with some landscaping. So the waivers that we would be looking for, and really the meat of this pre-application, would be 13 parking spaces where 16 are required. You know, again, an improvement, given that formerly it was a parking lot for cars for sale. And then relief from the landscape buffer requirements of less than 10 feet along the commercial property, the OSA Aquarium shop. We're proposing to put a split rail fence up there and a little landscaping along that boundary, but not the 10 feet that's required, but also not asphalt. And then in the back of this property, there's a residence. Currently, there's a 6-foot stockade fence. That fence will be kept up there, and there'll be about a 10-foot landscape buffer with deciduous trees and evergreens. We did submit a rough draft of a landscape plan to do with this area, as well as the area along OSA, so that we could show our intent to separate the properties. They've also asked for a waiver of the loading area in that they do not require one for the work they do. And the building itself is designed to be driven in and out of, and that's how the deliveries will take place. And finally, the last one is relief from the impervious lot coverage standard. The standard is 60% maximum coverage. By DEM standards, it's currently 100% impervious surface. By the town standard, they subtract the crushed stone area, it's 81%. So each of these requests for waivers is actually an improvement to the current site. And that's why we're looking for waivers from the planning board on these items. This is a single lot, once merged, single building. It'll be a nice addition to that Main Street area. They're going to do a nice job with the building and the landscaping. So with me this evening are the site designer, engineer Pat Walker, and I believe that the landscape architect is also available to answer questions. So if the board has any questions about this pre-application, let us know and we'll try to answer them.
Can I interject for a moment?
Absolutely.
If people are not speaking, could you please mute? Because it sounds like a couple of you at Disney World.
I know, it's very annoying.
It is. So if you're not speaking, I'd like you to put your phone on mute, your computer on mute, please.
Thank you, Russ.
It's all yours, Ron.
Yeah, I just, before you give the presentation, I just got a question on the development plan or review. Will we be going to zoning on this, or we will be discussing the waivers as a planning board?
I'm requesting waivers, Mr. Chairman, but that is up to the board.
Okay,
Excuse me a minute. I don't think it's up to the board. I think it's up to what the law allows for. With respect to the waivers. Attorney D'Agostino and I, we've discussed this, and we're of the opinion that the waivers you're looking for are straight out of the zoning ordinance, and you need to go before the zoning board to get these granted. Dave, if you could unmute, please. I know, Tom, you thought the planning board could grant you these waivers, but I personally do not think they have the legal authority to do so.
Yeah, Director Crossman and I reviewed this file, and I think it's a jurisdictional issue. The waivers that are being requested, they are solely under the zoning purview. I don't think they're very difficult, but I don't think this board has the jurisdiction to grant those particular waivers.
thank you. That's why I asked that question, because I know we do a lot of waivers at, on a development plan or review. But thank you for clarifying that. Also, this will be going right to preliminary. There won't be any master plan on this project, correct?
Yeah, the way the development plan review works is you go from pre-application to development plan review, which is a sole public hearing, and then it goes to final. So
Thank you.
after pre-app, they're gonna have to do all their heavy lifting and get all their engineering done and submit for their permits. And then they'll come back for a development plan review.
Thanks again. Anybody on the board have any questions? Go ahead, I see you here.
I'm just, Tom, I'm just a little concerned. We're putting up a building. 16 parking spaces are required. 5 of those spaces that he's proposed of the 13 are going to be interior parking spaces. But yet what happens if 5 or 10 years down the line, Sunset Tint and Sign decides that they can no longer operate at that location, and the town has a building of that size and only 8 exterior parking spaces? There would be no recourse by the town unless the zoning board stipulated that at some future date, if they vacated the property, they'd have to come back. I mean, is that a fair statement?
I think you're right in that, given the instructions of Attorney D'Agostino, that would be up to the zoning board to form the stipulation to be contingent on the use by Sunset Tin or to run with the property.
That's just my concern. That's a lot of lot coverage to only have 8 exterior parking spaces. As you know, with supply chain management and people that are actually in the commercial building business now, they're actually looking to double the footprint on parking spaces and reduce the square footage of buildings because they don't really stock inventory. I realize this is a service business, so I'm not gonna, it's just food for thought. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels. I mean, I'm still in support of anyone trying to bring business into town, but it's just a concern I have. And I don't know how we could address it.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
The planning staff has looked at this, and I've spoken with Pat Walker about this. Not that they're going to use them, but if they needed additional parking, they could put parallel parking against the southern boundary line of the property.
Yes.
You could get some spaces in there, as well as the western property line. You could have parallel parking up against the landscaping. I mean, it's not ideal, but I just think this use, they have an existing building across the street. We all see.
That's what this is. That's what this is.
We all see how much they use on a daily basis. So, that's just our take on it.
So I think that's really the point I was trying to get at. Are you suggesting that if the building was used for something else in the future, that a future tenant or purchaser would be able to come up with this required 16 spaces somewhere on the property or even on Whipple Street to allow for reuse?
Well, I would not want to promote on-street parking on Whipple Street. I'm not going down that road.
Well,
But
you can see my concern. We can have a building this big and no takers 5 to 10 years down the line if Sunset Tint and Sign decides to move again, or God forbid, has to, vacate for some other reason, and then we'll have no takers because there's not enough parking. That was my concern.
Rick, if I could interject here.
Sure.
The aisle widths on both the east and west, bear with me, let me find the north arrow, on the Whipple Street Court side and on the side toward the adjacent property are both 24 feet wide. We could make it a one-way circulation for a future need, which would give, a 9-foot parking space paralleling either the building or the outer edge, and then that would leave a 13-foot, a 15-foot aisle width, and it could be a one-way circulation. The other item is that with the overhead doors, and in speaking with the Massoris, they, pull the cars through. The side-to-side one, that's a pull through. The other ones provide, in and then they back out. So there is additional pavement that could be utilized for, depending on what the use is. You know, we just have it's just a general commercial use at 1 per 300. So I don't think we would be too hard pressed to fit the additional spaces if we just reworked the traffic circulation around the building and just made it one way.
And again, I'm not suggesting that they rework it for their use because they know that.
No, but I think there's sufficient pavement that would easily accommodate additional spaces.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. I'm all set.
Anybody else on the board? Mr. Kenny, I see your hand.
Yep. I don't know if it's too early to ask this question or not, but I was reviewing the specs of the building. And it says R19 insulation on the sides of the building and R19 insulation in the eaves of the building. Usually the insulation in the eaves it's a thicker insulation. Can anybody clarify that, or?
I cannot, Mr. Kenny. I don't know the specs of the insulation at this time.
Okay, it's just something, I've seen a bunch of these buildings go up before and the insulation's usually thicker in the top.
I would defer to the Bill and Ray Missouri because they've been coordinating with the manufactured building company. Bill, Ray, do you have any input into that?
Yeah, I mean, all that can change. That's not set in stone. That was just real quick drawings that the building company gave me for this meeting purpose. But all that can change, which we haven't had the final meeting for the building anyway. So yeah, you're right. We definitely need thicker insulation for we already know that.
Yeah, you'll lose a lot of money with heat going out the top of your building.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've already established that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, if I could add to that, Mr. Kenny, too, I believe it's an R30, but the building inspector, they'd have an insulation inspection on that anyway.
Right.
One other question I do have, we will be looking for if this is going for zoning, you'll be looking for us to vote one way or the other on a recommendation to zoning at your next meeting, right, Mr. Cronin?
I would request a recommendation to zoning this evening, Mr. Chairman. I didn't.
This is a pre-application, correct?
Yes.
We cannot do a recommendation to zoning this evening because they don't have the first stage of approval for the project yet.
That would be a preliminary, correct?
Well, it'd be a development plan review. It also was not advertised that way. We did not advertise for any vote this evening. So I'll defer to Attorney D'Agostino, but that's my feelings on this.
Yeah, my major concern is that it was not advertised as a zoning recommendation, so it would just invite an Open Meetings Act problem and a problem for the applicants if the board acted on that this evening.
Thank you. That's why I wanted to bring that up. Any other questions for any board members?
Mr. Chair, I don't think we should delay this project over a few parking spaces. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think that, I just think we have to have the next meeting before we can go forward with anything. This is just a pre-application meeting.
Okay.
This
That's
is the
my
wrong
opinion.
meeting, correct?
It's a shame. I had everything I wanted to say for a recommendation all written out.
I appreciate that, Mr. Kenny.
We don't want to hold up business in the town, but
No,
unfortunately, we have to go through.
Yeah, so the preliminary application, this is just to introduce us to the project, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, right, okay.
This was a pre-app, by the way. This is normally what we would have, you know, the little 5-minute spiel, and then we schedule a site walk. We just don't schedule the site walks anymore.
Right.
Okay, so I want Rick to understand that. He said preliminary. It's a pre-application.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
I'm looking at the agenda, at the package, and it says pre-application. That was my understanding as well. We're not even going to vote on anything tonight. This is to provide the applicant feedback in case he wants to revise his plan before he comes back.
Absolutely.
Correct. Thank you.
So does the board have any other comments related to the overall project that we should incorporate?
Anybody on the board? I don't have it. The only comment I do have is because of the Zoom meetings, if anybody on the board would like to go out, they can do their own individual site walk. Everybody knows I believe everybody knows where this project is going. So if anybody wants to go out and take a look at this before the next meeting, to clarify any of their issues, I would suggest they do that. I don't
Mr.
have
Chair.
it. Does anybody? Go ahead, Ms. Lopez.
I did a site walk on 2 different locations today, and that was one of them.
Excellent. But I don't hear anything else, Mr. Do you have anything else to add?
No, not at this time.
Mr. Cronin, do you have any?
We were looking for feedback on the reduced landscape and the parking. You know, obviously the reduction in impervious surface, no one's going to be against that, so.
Oh, I think the building, the rendition I'm looking at is very nice, and it's
Yeah.
Yep.
the asphalt parking lot. I don't hear anybody else, Mr. Cronin, so I think we're all set for tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, next week on 6.2, we have a public informational meeting. This is a comprehensive permit for master plan. The address is 445 Fairview Avenue. Owner B. Wayne Realty LLC. Applicant Pazuko, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Construction and Company. Proposed 10 residential units with a 25% deemed for affordable and on existing multi-unit residential parcel consisting of 9 units. It's AP 63 lot 154, zone R20, with a total property area of approximately 1.5 acres, and it's on 445 Fairview Avenue. Is anybody here representing the applicant tonight?
Mr. Chairman, Thomas Cronin, 1070 Main Street, Coventry, Rhode Island. With
Hi,
me.
Tom.
Hi. Chris Duhamel is here along with me, and Joe Lombardo, as well as Mr. Pazuko, who introduced himself earlier. This is a comprehensive permit. I know that the board is familiar with the comprehensive permit due to the recent work they've been doing. I'll give you a brief overview. 445 Fairview Avenue is located on the end of Fairview Avenue near the Coventry Fire District. It's on 1.5 acres, zoned R20. Currently has 9 residential apartments. The proposal is to add 10 additional residential apartments. Those apartments will be in 2 buildings with 5 apartments apiece. It's a comprehensive permit application because the plan has an affordable housing component. Of those 10 new units, 3 will be affordable housing. The affordable housing application has been submitted to Rhode Island Housing, and Coventry Housing has agreed to be the monitoring agency, and those initial steps have been completed. The area is directly off Fairview Avenue for access. It consists of mainly residential homes. The nearest landmark is probably Budsy's Nursery, or I know that was recently bought. I don't know what they're going to call the new one, but where Budsy's used to be, as we say in Rhode Island. Under the comprehensive permit, the planning board has broadened powers and makes all the decisions, planning and zoning. any appeal would be to the state housing board rather than the Superior Court of the zoning board. I know that this board is familiar with these items, but I feel like it's helpful to review them. This application is made reflecting the information in the Coventry Town Comprehensive Plan and the affordable housing plans and ordinances that come out of the comprehensive plan. Some of the highlights of the site in terms of the comprehensive plan and the affordable housing components are that the site has public water, has public sewer, has access to the bus line, and it's located in R20 zone, which is one of only 3 zones in town that allow for multifamily housing under a special use permit. Well, I'll be asking for a special use permit from this board, and I'll be asking for waivers from the checklist as well as the comprehensive plan. But as this board is well aware, I hate to be redundant, so I'm not going to describe the site to you. I'm going to ask that you accept Chris Duhamel of Dupree Engineering as an expert and allow him to testify as to the site design. Is that acceptable, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Corona.
Chris, please state your name, occupation, and credentials for the record and proceed to describe the site. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Chris Duhamel with Dupree Engineering, located at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston, Rhode Island. I'm a professional engineer and a professional land surveyor, and it's been a decade before I've testified in front of the Planning Commission. So good to see many of you again. This is as Tom has said, this is a comprehensive permit to allow for residential apartments to be built on a site, 1.5 acre site with frontage on Fairview Avenue. The site has been surveyed to a Class 1 standard. The wetlands have been delineated and found to be an isolated forested wetland, 5,000 square foot without any required 50-foot buffer that's been verified by the DEM. The site is used to be serviced by a on-site wastewater treatment system, so soils are good on-site, but since sewer has been made available, it created an avenue to provide for more housing, more affordable housing. The existing building on-site is a nine unit apartment complex with 17 parking spaces and an aisle accessing those parking spaces. What we're proposing today is to provide for 2 additional buildings, 2 townhouse style buildings with 5 units in each building. And we would add 18 parking spots to accommodate the 10 additional units and the 9 existing apartment dwellings. The parking requirement for 19 units is 38 parking spaces. We're proposing 39 parking spaces, including the 2 handicapped parking spaces. The site's designed such that the drainage would be handled on site. We're considering dry wells that would infiltrate the roof leaders and an above ground stormwater management system that would infiltrate the increase in pervious pavement. There is impervious pavement, proposed pavers that are being proposed about 25 feet in width in front of the proposed building to the north. That pervious pavement area is mainly for a safe turnaround for fire trucks. During the pre-application stage, there was concern raised by the Planning Commission, and more detail was provided, and a hammerhead turning area that has no parking dedicated within it was found to be needed, and that's what that design is for. There is again public water that's serving the existing 9 dwellings. That public water would be expanded to serve the 10 additional units. Kent County Water Authority would be requested to extend that service to the 10 units that would happen at the preliminary plan stage. There's public sewer, Coventry Sewer Authority servicing the existing 9 units. We would apply at the preliminary plan stage to handle the additional 10 apartments. For access to the site on Fairview Avenue, we'll be utilizing the existing driveway access. That is considered a safe access onto the site, given the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour, the safe stopping distance being 150 feet. We have greater than 350 feet looking both north and south. So there's safe access to the site. The advantages of utilizing this property in the R20 zone, which is given as a special use permit, you could provide for multifamily housing with conditions of review by the Planning Commission. And the conditions that I would present are, this is an existing developed site. So this additional use is considered infill, not new expansive use of an undeveloped parcel. And as Thomas said, this is on the bus route. We have public water, public sewer. We have parking to meet the code on site. We're meeting all stormwater management conditions on site. We have adequate fire access, and we have service for a dumpster pad, and no other waivers. One of the variances that we've requested is for a side yard setback within R20 zone for residential single family. There's a 20-foot side yard setback required. We've shown that 20 foot as a dashed line on the plan being shared right now. The multifamily code, however, requires 40 feet of side yard access. So we're asking for a variance to that aspect of the code. We would make up for that 40 feet, 20-foot variance by having a 10-foot thick vegetative buffer along the south and westerly boundary of the site to mitigate that, that reduction in side yard setback. I think lot coverage is another aspect for consideration for a waiver. The existing lot coverage would equate to 25% given the 9-unit building and the existing 17 parking spaces. We're asking for 47% of lot coverage to accommodate the 10 additional units and the 18 additional parking spaces. So with that said, I think I've covered all the site development issues, and I could answer any questions.
Mr. Duhamel, Tom Cronin, would you just explain to the board, there's one additional waiver that we're requesting with regard to minimum distance between multifamily buildings, where 40 feet is required, and the shortest distance we have is just under 25 feet.
That's correct. Given the shape of the parcel and the buildable area, and eliminating any potential disturbance, alteration of wetlands, we've tightened up the building so that we required less than 40 feet, requiring 24.7 feet between the buildings.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I have Mr. Joseph Lombardo to present as an expert witness with regard to municipal planning. I think it might make sense to hear from Mr. Lombardo as well before questioning, but as you are well aware, it's the chair's choice.
No, I'm fine with that, Mr. Cronin. That way, once you do your presentation, then the board, I'm sure, will have many questions.
Okay. So
So you
I'd
can-
ask that Mr. Lombardo be accepted as an expert witness and be allowed to testify for this board, before this board. Mr.
Okay, go ahead.
Lombardo, please introduce yourself, state your qualifications, and describe your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I don't know if Russell's still watching or listening. Hi to you too. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of the commission this evening. As some of you know, I have a background in community planning, the master's from URI. I've been the town planner in Richmond and Hopkinton and Westerly, and I've participated in many ordinance revisions and preparations for those, and comprehensive plan revisions as well. I've been asked by this applicant to do actually 2 reports, one being compliance with the comprehensive plan and affordable housing plan, which demonstrates the need under the comprehensive permit process. And the second is a master plan checklist item, a fiscal report. So hopefully I understand the board members have probably had an opportunity to review these. I'm just going to give you a brief summaries of them and be available to answer questions. Starting with the comprehensive plan report, we look at a couple of things here. We start with town's affordable housing plan, and we want to review, the strategies for implementation to meet the 10% goal that the state has imposed on all the communities in Rhode Island. We know that as part of this comprehensive permit, 25% of these units, or 3 out of the 10, will be designated long-term as low moderate units, and they will count towards that 10% goal. You've heard Chris Duhamel explain the siting, the location of this area. When we look at that R20 zone, it is one of the zones that permit multifamily housing in Coventry, but with a community the size of Coventry, the vast majority of the zoning is larger lots in other zones that don't permit multifamily. So one of the main strategies in the comprehensive permit in your plan talks about using the comprehensive permit process as a mechanism to achieve that. When we look at the data, there's a clear need in Coventry for affordable housing. And when we also look at the designations of the different categories, you have a fair amount of your current low moderate income housing that counts to the 10% is elderly, and the balance is family or other. And it's really that family area that there's the biggest need right now in Coventry. So we look at that, we find that you have an overall need to meet the 10%. I believe you're at 5.35%. Then you have a specific need for family units. And again, I should stress that family units are 2 or more people. So it can be a family of 2 and still classify as a family unit, just so you understand that aspect. And so that's the first test is, does it meet the requirements for the need? And then we look at the site itself. Town of Coventry is one of the communities in their plan where they designate some of their preferred locations for their higher density locations for these types of projects. But it also encourages other locations scattered, as they call them, throughout the community. So this would be one of those scattered sites that still can come under the comprehensive permit process and still produce low and moderate income housing units. When we look at goals and policies in your comprehensive plan, then some action items, there's some specific ones where it specifies using the comprehensive permit as a tool. And it is one of the main tools that most communities have available because but it is initiated by private developers. And so I think even if you look at the housing element in general, it talks about encouraging high density residential areas, the development that has density bonuses. And that's what this comprehensive permit process also allows. And it's also provide additional opportunities, rental units, single family homes, that type of thing, so that there's a variety of housing choices for residents in the town of Coventry. So again, The last thing I'll mention is the land use plan, designates the area for high density residential, which it is. This multifamily is a use that is permitted in the R20 by special use permit, as Tom Cronin described to you. So again, my conclusion is that it meets the test for the need is obvious. The need specifically for this type of housing is also specified in your plan. And I feel it meets all those criteria to allow the planning commission to approve this project under this provision.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Would you give a brief summary of your fiscal impact report as well?
Sure. Thank you, Tom. Again, to the commission members, this is a checklist item that's required in all master plans for a land development project. I have a process and a format that I've used, and some of you have probably seen it before, but it uses like what we call a per capita or per person multiplier, where we establish how much it costs a municipality per resident to provide all municipal services, and then separately what it costs to educate a school-age child. And then we estimate the revenue side of it, how many people will occupy these units, apply those multipliers, and we can come up with a basic estimate on the fiscal side, revenues and expenses on how this project will affect the community. So I used current school numbers, I used current budget numbers, I use census data, and I use a multiplier that you've probably seen before, but typically 2-bedroom apartments or condominiums generate a fairly low number of school-age children as it compares to single-family homes. I've included a lot of data that I've collected over the years in an addendum. They indicate, why even these types of larger multifamily buildings tend to produce far less school-age children as well, primarily because the typical amenities that you would see in a single-family neighborhood are not there. So it's not necessarily overly desirable for a family with a child to move into one of these apartment buildings. They can, but it's not typically their first choice. In some cases, it might be a necessity to be in an apartment for a time being. So using those formulas, I was estimating one child, at any given time. It could be 2 some years. It will always vary with these 10 units. And when we plug those values in, there's a revenue side of 41,000, and on the expense side, it's about 27,000. It actually shows a small net positive to the community. So if there were 2 school-age children, it might be a wash. If there were 3, it would be a deficit. And again, that's the nature of these types of apartments. And you with the 2 bedrooms, you certainly have the ability to house a child, but it's typically not a first choice with families. So that's the fiscal report. And again, I'll be happy to answer questions on those reports at the conclusion of our presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardo. Mr. Flynn, I did receive a letter just yesterday in support of the project from Grantham Smith, 455 Fairview Avenue in Coventry, lives immediately adjacent to the existing 9-unit development. And he simply says that he's writing in favor of the proposed project in our neighborhood. Pizzuco Construction is a reputable building company and currently keeps a neat, well-managed property at 445 Fairview Avenue. I'll supplement that with the planning staff so that it's available to everyone, but I did receive it at my office at a late moment. And so I just wanted to share that. In terms of our presentation, Mr. Chairman, I was going to go through the special use permit and various requests, but Mr. Duhamel has ably done so. So I don't wish to beat the bush, so to speak. So we're ready to accept any questions from the board or the public as Mr. Chairman sees fit.
Yeah, just to give a brief outline of how this works. for anybody in the public that hasn't been at one of these meetings. I will be going to my board for any questions for the expert. And then when we're done, we will open up to the public hearing. Everybody will have a chance to speak. So I just wanted to make clear of that. So Mr. Cronin, are you all right with Mr. McGee's report?
Yeah, he recommends a stop sign be added to the exit, if I'm not correct, as well as a little widening of the view area. If I recall, and yeah, I had no problem with his report. Oh, he's looking for, I'm sorry, one additional thing, snow storage, which, yeah, we can add that element, yes.
Okay. And just to be clear too, we did do a site walk on this project. It was, before all this COVID hit. They did address the fire and rescue apparatus turnaround, which I was glad to see. So I'll ask anybody on the board has any questions for Mr. Cronin. Yes, Ms. Lukowitz.
I did a site walk there today because I couldn't make the last site walk. I was not impressed with the apartments. I drove all the way down to the end of the parking lot. If it wasn't for an empty space, I would have never been able to turn around. With that said, I left there and I went down the private road on the side of it so I could see in the back. Now, it looks to me that there are wetlands back there. Am I right or wrong, Tom?
There are wetlands at that end of the piece of property. That's correct.
All right. Has DEM taken a look at that?
Yes, they verify the flags delineation.
Okay.
We would have to return to DEM to get the site development and stormwater management system approved.
Okay. And how much land is behind the one that you're going to build?
Well, the entire site is 1.5 acres. I'm not exactly sure. Mr. Duhamel, do you have an area? Can you calculate an area approximately of that site?
From the back of the building,
Yes.
it's about 120 feet to the back of the rear of the existing building. And in the wetland is in that area. There's let's see, it's about 60 feet of wetlands.
It just doesn't seem like there's enough room to put those buildings, in my opinion.
Yeah, you would say that. We have to be exact on the ground. We're not trying to fudge anything. The plan that you have in front of you has an accurate class 1 boundary, an accurate survey of the wetland flags. It has areas for drainage, parking, turnaround for the fire vehicles. So it's engineered at this level to show that it would work. We can't rely on this. We have to go to another degree. We have building footprints now from the owner with a development unit that he wishes to build. These townhouse units are 31 by 100 feet in width. Those could be finalized in the future, but these are the ones that he's looking for now. We have those buildings. We have a sidewalk in front of them for access to the parking areas. Again, the turnarounds and the 18 new parking spaces and a dumpster pad. So they fit with the dimensions that we're showing. We hope to get approval for a 20-foot side yard, which is equal to the the residential side yard setback.
And how many parking spaces did you say for each apartment?
There'd be required 2, and we've met that with Out of 19, 38 required, we have 39 proposed.
Okay,
You're right. When you go down to the end of the parking today, there's no turnaround. There's, you have to-
that's why I'm wondering, how would a fire truck and rescue get in there?
Presently, they don't have the access that we're proposing. We would improve the access by building a turnaround at the end of the parking.
Well,
And
those
that's a no
residents,
parking area, no dumpster area. That's just a pavement, permeable pavement surface that will always be available.
okay,
Thank you for your questions, Ms. Lukowitz.
mm-hmm.
Anybody else on the board have any questions?
Mr. Chair, Glenn Anderson.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the map was up. Sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. So just the waiver that they're asking for, 40 feet in between multifamily buildings. Zone in section 255-1460. So I had it up. Why, you know, that standard was created for what purpose? Is this for safety regulations? If one of the buildings caught on fire, you know, what went into that 40-foot marker that we would feel, you know, clear conscious about shrinking that, you know, 40%, so to speak, to 24 feet. I don't know what the standard 40 feet was put in place for. I don't know if it was for safety purposes or not.
I can say, Mr. Anderson, that I reviewed the zoning ordinance today, and there is no annotation or commentary in that area. So it's a good question. I don't have an answer. I will say that our request is based on the configuration of the lot. As you can see, it's not a rectangular lot. And there are some pinch points that, along with the wetland, that drive the placement of the buildings as described by Mr. Duhamel.
Right.
Typically 20-foot fire protection is required around buildings. So we're looking towards utilizing that.
Okay. Maybe I'll look for that answer. And I guess I was like, I mean, it's over a year ago, and forgive me if we skimmed over it already, but the town engineer, Bruce Hageman at the time, it was a year ago. He just thought that maybe the water runoff containment was not going to be enough. I don't know if you took that into consideration and we already looked at that and that got enlarged, or we don't have any concerns with the containment for the water runoff. We think it's sized properly.
At this master plan stage, we have not done those calculations. That's a concern on every site, and it's delegated. It's required to be met by the preliminary plan stage. At that stage, we'll have engineered calculations that show the pre-development and post-development runoff and how it's handled on site. Those calcs will be given to the DEM for review, and they'll be scrutinized at that level. A permit from DEM is required to advance to the preliminary plan stage. At that stage, the town engineer will go over the calculations as well. So we've got a long ways to go with this site design and this stage, and this doesn't guarantee that that there won't be the same density, if you will, on site. We'd have to prove that those stormwater calculations meet DEM standards and town of Coventry standards.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, that's what I was getting at. We're fitting a lot into a little space, and your waivers are indicative of that. So I if it's even feasible or not. So I guess going forward, I just thought I'd put it out there. We did walk that property, and I guess the concern was somebody in the group, I think it was Mr. Matson, pointed out, the ADA, and it's not a problem getting those sidewalks at the right pitch. It just seemed like there was a drop off. These are just little things that stuck in my head. Again, we're trying to fit a lot here in a little bit. So I guess that's all gonna come in the future, right?
It will.
Okay.
That's right on point. Those questions are right on point.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Are you all set, Mr. Anderson?
I am, thank you.
I see two hands up. I'm gonna go to Mr. Mattson first.
Mhm.
He hasn't spoke yet. Go ahead, Mr. Mattson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember the site walk sometime last summer, and it did seem as though we were kind of tight in that area, and we did have some questions, and you know, they have taken care of some of them as far as, you know, how they're going to take care of the fire trucks if they have to come in and turn around. But my question today is the affordable housing component. You're building two identical buildings with 5 spaces or 5 pieces, tenements in each. Yet we have 3 that are considered affordable housing. What distinguishes them as the affordable housing pieces?
The actual distinction is the designation, Mr. Mattson, that the rent cannot be 80% of market. Right now, Rhode Island Housing has informed us that that's about $1,500 per month. That seems high to us, you know, to be 80% of market rate in that area. But so the affordable units will have deed restrictions on them. The rent will be controlled, and that will be monitored by Coventry Housing. So from the front, say, Mr. Mattson, you wouldn't be able to distinguish which of the units was affordable.
That's always the confusing point, is you're going to be looking at 10 identical pieces, yet 3 are flagged for affordable housing. You might think that one might have 2 sinks for the most part, and one might have just 1 sink for the affordable one, but I guess it just doesn't seem to work that way.
Well, we have seen projects where they attempt that, but I think Mr. Lombardo can probably speak to the fact that evidence over the years has shown that when affordable units are built in a manner that distinguishes them from the surrounding units, it ends up devaluing not only those units, but the other units as well. So best planning practices and best economic practices are to try to build a unity so that they're indistinguishable.
Yeah, and I would just add, thanks, Tom, 2 other important points is they have to be dispersed throughout the project site. They can't all be in one location. And they have to be basically indistinguishable from the outside. And more to your question, that doesn't, you know, I've seen it maybe more on for sale condominiums where they might change some of the interior. For example, they might have a Formica, a laminate countertops instead of granite, or a couple of things like that on the inside. But on these apartments, as far as I know, these will all be identical. So there really is, as Mr. Cronin points out, they'll just be designated as such, and they'll be interspersed through the 2 buildings, and you really wouldn't know the difference from the exterior. That is the goal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. And Mr. Cronin, if I could jump in too, even when we do residential construction developments, you never can spot which one is affordable. And I believe that's done for a reason, which is pretty consistent with what the affordable is. You shouldn't look at the project and say, well, that one over there is affordable and that one isn't. That's really not how it's supposed to be. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We've done a lot of these projects and you could never distinguish which one is an affordable. Rick, I see your hand, but Ms. Lukowitz's hand was up first, so I'm going to go to her first.
All right. I see here there was not a traffic study done with all of those apartments. Can you tell me why?
Mr. Duhamel?
We looked at the, we didn't do a level of service analysis for the proposed 19 units. We looked at the safety of ingress and egress out of development, the existing 9 units, and then adding the 10 new units, and we found adequate or exceeded the safe stopping distance required for that level. We didn't do a level of service analysis.
Don't you think you should have?
There wouldn't be any delays considered on Fairview Avenue of cars turning in. In our opinion, it didn't seem to warrant a traffic study. I mean, we've been asked to do traffic studies at the next level if that appears to be a concern, but with 19 units, 3 or 4 units during the peak hour, cars during the peak hour turning in or coming out, would not consider an impact on Fairview Avenue. So if the commission requires, we would have to do that at the next level. Similar to an environmental review that the commission requires for any major land development project. It's considered at this master plan whether or not it would be a concern, and then it would be a requirement again at the next level, at the master preliminary plan level.
Another concern I have is when I was there today, I noticed quite a few horses. I'm just very leery that with all those people right next door, kids and everything, I just hope no harm will come to those horses. There's going to be an awful lot of people there.
It's 2-bedroom. It's not, as Mr. Lombardo has stated, it's typically not a lot of school children. And the horses are on the lot to the north. You'd have to go through the wetlands to get to that property.
That's all I have.
It's point well taken.
Thank you, Ms. Lukowitz, for those very good questions. Mr. Clunian, you're up next.
Hey, the elephant in the room with these things is always the density. But I do have a question on the affordable housing. We've had 2 or 3 of these come forward, and they've always been kind of freestanding developments. This one's a little different because there's already 9 units on that lot, and we're adding 10. Why is it that Rhode Island Housing does not look at the entire 19 units as the project and request 25%? I mean, is it just the way the application's submitted? I just want to make sure that we're kind of complying with when Rhode Island Housing was presented with the project. Were they presented with 10 new units, or were they presented with 19 units now that 10 are being added to one lot?
So
To answer the question, they were presented with the existing 9 and adding 10 and providing for affordable housing over the 10 new lots. And they required 3 apartments.
Well, that said, and again, as Mr. Cronin acknowledged, 1,500 and change for a 2-bedroom unit, and that may be the allowance including utilities. I'm not sure how the calculation's made, but would the applicant consider creating a total of 5 affordables, even if as someone leaves the other 9 units, they be re-rented to so we could help increase our stock?
I think we had to complete an economic analysis, Mr. Clunian, of the project and submit that to Rhode Island Housing and the town of Coventry as well. And I don't think we could really answer that question without redoing those kind of figures. I acknowledge that the rent that Rhode Island Housing came up with, no matter how you calculate it, doesn't seem terribly burdensome, but there are quite a bit of upfront construction costs, engineering, planning, and zoning to be considered as well. So I don't think I could answer that question on behalf of my client or, on the spot.
Well,
One of the requirements of Rhode Island Housing is that the project be economically viable. That it'll work.
That
okay.
is,
Again, I just want to make sure that we're following. Again, I didn't know what the answer was, and that was my preliminary and predominant question was. Rhode Island Housing only goes by, so for example, if you have a 2-family dwelling and you decide you want to put up 3 units behind it, you only have to come up with 1 affordable unit. They don't look at the whole 5. See, that's what I'm trying to get at. I don't know why if all the dwellings are on one lot. This isn't like a self-contained housing development. Everything is going on one lot. Why they don't consider the other 9 units as part of the calculation when they figure out 25% have to be affordable?
I don't know why, but that is, we followed the instructions and we received the approval of Rhode Island Housing based on the information we provided, which included the 9 existing units on that lot.
They were given the site, the master plan that you have in front of you, the building plans of the townhouses, showing, conformity with the affordable units and the market rate units. The same parking configuration that they approved it with 3 affordable housing. You raise a good question, Rick, but I don't have an answer either.
Okay.
it looks to me like they didn't count the pre-existing.
They didn't.
The structure that was already there.
Oh, they definitely didn't. My question was, why didn't they, if it's all on one lot? Well, that's the project, but
Right.
so be it.
Anything from anybody else on the board?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I
ahead.
agree with what Rick was saying. Even in the planning director's report, it says that this project, 445 Fairview Avenue, is an expansion of the existing apartment complex. It just makes sense that an expansion should be possibly included. That's just my point.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. D'Agostino.
I don't know if this will be of any assistance. I understand Mr. Kalunian's question and Mr. Mattson's comment. I think if this were a phased project, you would have Rhode Island Housing looking at all the units. I can't speak for Rhode Island Housing why they only viewed it like that, how they did. But I think they viewed it like they did because I don't think they were counting the existing units as part of the project, because those are there and the project is delineated as the new 9 units. So I don't want to speak for Rhode Island Housing, but I think that's how they probably looked at it.
They also, to emphasize, besides the plan, they also walked the site with the owners and fully understood what was being proposed. So again, beyond, they knew that there were 9 units out there. We're adding 10. The 10 required 25%.
You answered my question. I actually just wanted to make sure that we were following. I couldn't find the rules between the time I read this yesterday and today. I did make a call to Russ. I told him I was going to ask the question tonight, and more than likely they took the position that, hey, if we can get 3 more units out of someone that's willing to build 10, we'll take it. It's better than none. That's probably the way they were thinking. As you stated, the other 9 are already there. There's nothing they can do about it.
Anybody else on the board have any questions?
Mr. Chair, it's Jay Ozenkowski. I don't really, thank you. I don't necessarily have questions. I may have one. I wanted to just follow up Mr. Duhamel or Mr. Cronin stated that that wetland had been verified. Was that verified through DEM's wetlands program or the consultant or?
Yeah, we have an approved edge of
Okay.
location.
Yeah. All right. I mean, it's a forested wetland, so as long as the regs are standing the way they are now, I mean, there's no protection really up to the edge. That said, I mean, it looks like, I don't have my scale with me, but it looks like, I mean, it's like everybody stated, very, very tight. You have like 10 to 15 feet from that wetland, so that'll definitely get encroached on based on past history. In general, you know, I think because it's development plan review, I'll just say, I think this is a really lackluster attempt on a project that doesn't have really any realized benefits to the town. It's very tight, it's cramped, kind of pushed in there, and the design of the buildings are, again, lackluster. And I just think it's not a project that I think that Coventry is really eagerly desiring. That's all I have to state.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ozakowski.
I
Anybody
can
else?
say,
Go ahead, Mr. Duhamel.
I could say again, we're at master plan, preliminary plan, and the plans that were put forth were to give a scale of the 2-bedroom units and all, but if we get beyond this point, we'll have an architect that will get more into the the enhancement of the units, the building, the facade, and that'll be at the next level.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Mr. Lukowitz.
The only last question I have is, I don't know if this was discussed or not, about a fence going around the perimeter.
We have not shown a fence at this point, but we could work with the landscape architect on the buffer screening and a fence on the south boundary in particular.
That would be a good idea. Thank
Okay.
you.
I agree with that also. Anybody else before I open up public hearing? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna make a motion to open up public hearing. Do I have a motion to open up public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing, Chair.
I second.
A second by
Sandy.
Sandy, second it. Thank you. Okay, I'll do a quick roll call. Mr. Reyes?
Aye.
Mr. Kenny?
Aye.
Mr. Boselli?
Uh-oh. We got
Richard's
another-
muted.
Sleeping.
Mr. Boselli?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Mattson?
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski?
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Clunian?
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, open, public hearing is now open. Hey, Mr. Crossman, how does staff want to address the public hearing?
Carol, did you want to speak or do you want me to go to the audience?
I would be happy to speak now, Director. That'd be fine if that's okay with the board.
Absolutely. Name and address, please.
Attorney Carol Ricker at, let's see, 36 Vermont Avenue, Warwick, Rhode Island, with Pelletier, Marshall, and Clark, representing the Andrea Pinardo Trust, which is an abutter to the proposed development.
Thank you.
Just at the outset, Mr. Crossman, I did forward the link to two other attorneys in my office who I don't believe are going to be speaking, but who are listening. Just I understand there's an issue earlier. I just want to make sure that.
No,
okay.
that's fine. I see Kim is in attendance and I don't know who the other person is, so that's fine.
Attorney Marlene Marshall. She's a partner at the firm here.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. I don't want to take up too much of the board's time. Some of the concerns that my client has have been raised already by the board members. I believe it was Mr. Kalunian who stated that the elephant in the room is the density. And I'd like to address that, the proverbially one bite at a time. Because, my client's position is that just because a proposed development has affordable housing units, the result shouldn't be that the commission looks past all of the drastic waivers that are being requested in the development itself. And after reviewing the plan and after reviewing the comprehensive permit application, and after reviewing the comprehensive plan for the town of Coventry, as well as the zoning regulations, I think that it becomes very plain that these waivers are not trivial. In fact, they're quite substantial. And as to the zoning waivers, they're actually, frankly, they're remarkable. So, the board is well aware and of the standard of review here, that the board must make positive findings on the 7 various provisions that are in the general laws. And so I just want to address the 3 of those briefly that I think will make it very difficult for this board to actually approve this application. And the first would be the Rhode Island General Laws 4553(4), subsection A45A. And that was already touched on, I believe, by Mr. Lombardo, that the proposed development must be consistent with local needs as identified in the local comprehensive community plan, with particular emphasis on the affordable housing. However, I respectfully ask the board not to look past the first provision of that, which is consistency with the comprehensive community plan. So I'd like to address that first. And the other 2 areas that I'd like to address, the other 2 provisions that I think are going to make it very difficult for this application to be approved, would be subsection B of the same statute, that this development, that any development, the approval of these developments, they must be in compliance with the standards and provisions of the municipality's zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and that must be balanced. Any waivers must be balanced with local concerns. And then the last section I think is prohibitive of this application is the section that requires the board to look at how this, whether there's any negative impacts on the health and safety of current or future residents in the community, any of these local concerns. And if the board would allow me to address those one by one, I'll do it as briefly as I possibly can.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
The first requirement is that this development be consistent with the comprehensive community plan of the town of Coventry. And one of the very basic truths about the comprehensive plan in the town of Coventry is that the rural nature of the community is something that has been identified as something to protect. And that is stated plainly in section D1 of the land use plan element. And it addresses the rate, the location, the character of the growth of the town. And it states, quote, protection of Coventry's open space and rural character have surfaced as top priorities for the community. And I think that's very important for the board to consider when you're looking at a development of this density. This is a high density, more urban style development with little to no open space and lacking completely in any type of rural character. So I think in terms of the comprehensive plan, that may be the first thing that puts this at odds. The next section of the comprehensive plan that is relevant is really the definition of a medium density of R20 in terms of zoning. And R20 districts are, quote, characterized by medium density residential development plus certain open space areas. And this is where the density issue, the elephant in the room, comes to the forefront. Because if you look at this plan, if you look at page 38 of the application, the current non-conforming use has a square footage of 7,500 square feet. What the applicant is proposing is additions is an additional 12,000 square feet. So the total square footage on this residential parcel is increasing by 260%. And that's for the benefit of 3 affordable housing units. So you're multiplying the density by 2.5% for 3 affordable housing units. And this is a unit that's surrounded by single-family residential homes and includes wetlands. I liken this, I'm very bad at metaphors, but I think this is a metaphor. I'm very bad at even defining what I'm defining as a metaphor. But this is, if you took a single-family residential parcel and had an existing non-conforming single-family home, and you add another home on that parcel and another half home, that's what's happening here. It's 260% increase in the square footage. And the justification would be that that half home that's sitting on a single family R20 plat would be affordable housing. And that's the justification for building an additional home, an additional half home. Now you have 2.5 homes on a property that's intended to have 1. So I think that is somewhat that defines what the applicant is trying to do here. This property is a medium density residential development, and to allow the square footage of the actual developed property to be increased by 260%. I don't believe that is consistent with the comprehensive plan for the town of Coventry. So, with that, that's the one, that's sort of the overriding or overarching density issue when you're looking at how much of this parcel is going to be developed. And I'm just going to move on. So in sum, I think the comprehensive plan really requires this board to look at the character of the town of Coventry and how this town should be developed in terms of preserving open space, its rural character. If the property is surrounded by single family homes, it contains wetlands, established trees, and the question is whether or not, in order to satisfy just 3 out of 10 proposed affordable housing units, if it is justified to approve this application and change the character of that property. So that's the comprehensive plan. That's the inconsistency with the comprehensive plan. And now I want to move on to those other 2 provisions that this board must find findings of fact about. And that is a provision regarding whether this is in compliance with zoning regulations, and also whether it is, whether the health and safety and the local concerns are outweighed by any waivers that are being requested. So in terms of the intensity regulations in the zoning, the maximum lot coverage for an other permitted use in R20 is 20% of the lot. What the petitioners, the applicants are requesting here is to allow a 47% coverage. That's an increase of 235% of what's currently permitted on a lot with wetlands that's abutted by single family homes. 235%, going from a 20% coverage to a 47% coverage. That waiver request is so extreme that it facially can't outweigh the concerns of the abutters, of the preservation of the wetlands, of the character of the community, and the like. So, when we're talking about the elephant in the room, which is the density, it really is a huge issue with this property. And I think, and my position, my client's position is that because of these issues, this board will find it very difficult to make findings of fact that would approve this property in relation to those density issues. The other 2 zoning waiver requests are the distance between the multifamily buildings. I know, I think it was Mr. Anderson had a comment about why is there a 40-foot requirement between 2 abutting ends of a building? And while we may not know the answer to that, what we do know is that this application seeks to reduce that by almost 1/2. Again, looking for a 50% reduction in an established zoning regulation. And that is not a trivial waiver. That is something that is substantial. So that density would be more like finding on a city block than on a residentially owned parcel. The other waiver request for the zoning issues is the distance between multifamily buildings and property lines. And this is the issue that is one of the dearest or the most concerning to my client, because she is an abutter to what would be both of these buildings. And the current zoning regulations require that the distance between the buildings and the property line is 40 feet. Here, again, the applicant is requesting a drastic waiver of that, 50%. They want they want that distance to be cut in half. In other words, their position is that they want to allow a multifamily building to be twice as close to the property line as permitted under the current regulations. And the impact on the community in terms of a buffer for noise, for light, for activity, for privacy, for security is far outweighed by the need for just 3 additional affordable housing units. And that goes back to my original point. Just because this development has affordable housing doesn't mean that all of the existing zoning regulations and the comprehensive plan of the town of Coventry should be put aside. And the last thing I'll mention before I briefly close on my arguments is a very salient point about the idea of precedent. If these waivers are granted, then precedent is set that the Planning Commission will approve and accept comprehensive permit applications or maybe other land development applications with these types of extreme parameters and waivers from established regulations. Waivers that allow for 235% of the current allowed intensity regulations, that slash the setbacks in residential zones by 50%, that allow for multifamily units to be within 20 feet of the lines of single family houses. And that's only because they contain some form of affordable housing in them. These waivers, if approved by this body, will set a precedent that applicants can come before this board and they can put forth developments that have some measure of affordable housing to meet what is an important goal and a mandate from the legislature. But these waivers that are being requested in this issue, it would set a precedent for other applicants to come forward and looking for and asking for waivers that result in more crowding, more noise, more light, more people, less security, less privacy, and that would fundamentally alter the character of the community as intended by the regulations that are in place. And so for this reason, my client respectfully asks that this commission deny the application based on the incompatibility of the requested waivers with the town's comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances, and for the good of the local community. And with that, I'll pass it back to the board. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for hearing me out tonight.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Crossman, you'll be bringing someone else in from the public?
I do. I have somebody who has their hand raised. Hold on. Mr. Wazika, I am not able to bring this person in. Can you bring, oh, I'm at, oh, Mary's in, there she is.
Mary, please state your full name, spell your last name, and also your address, please.
Mary, you're on mute, please. Could you please unmute?
You need to unmute, Mary. Mary, you're muted.
You're muted.
Mary, you're still muted.
Am I good now?
There you
Good now,
go.
Mary.
Okay, sorry. First time. It's Mary Perry, P-E-R-R-Y, at 473 Fairview Avenue in Coventry. I have concerns about the wetlands and the water table. I was told I can't even put in an in-ground swimming pool here because of the water table. So if they're gonna dig 2 foundations and they're up higher than me on the street, how is that going to affect my property? Am I gonna have underground water coming up more now? Is it going, well, how is it going to affect that? That's my concern. If I can't even do an in-ground swimming pool, how are they going to dig 2 foundations?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Cronin, would you like to address that?
sure, I'll have Mr. Duhamel address that. Well, I'll just, in general, as this board is well aware, any developer developing anywhere in the town of Coventry and the state of Rhode Island is responsible for controlling the stormwater and groundwater flow disturbed by their development, and to keep that
He said they were waiving that, I thought.
to keep that from increasing, I believe is what the ordinance says.
I
So
thought he
whatever-
said he was asking for a waiver for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, could you let him finish, please? And then
Oh,
we can.
sorry.
No
I
problem.
don't know how to use this.
That's okay. Just to let Mr. Cronin answer your question, and then you
Okay.
can rebut.
So we haven't asked for any kind of waiver for water, whether it be stormwater or groundwater, increased flow off the property. That issue has not been raised prior to this time. There is a Coventry ordinance, and the town engineer is appointed to enforce that ordinance, which prohibits an increase in flow of water off the property due to development. So,
Okay, my other question is, are they gonna have their own, are they gonna be required to put in a fire hydrant of their own, or are they gonna be using the existing one in front of 464 Fairview?
so part of the development process, Ms. Perry, is a review by the fire department. You heard Mr. Duhamel testify earlier as to the turnaround, for instance, that we installed. They review all aspects of the plan. And in some cases, they ask for increased capacity to provide water at a site. In the rural parts of Coventry, it's in the form of a cistern. In the more developed parts of Coventry, maybe an additional hydrant. They have not made those reviews and comments at this time. That's part of the next step that you heard Mr. Duhamel describe earlier.
Okay, and I agree with Ms. Lukowitz, Mrs. Lukowitz, I'm not sure what her name is, I'm sorry, about doing a traffic study, because I've lived here for 12 years. I've had my house driven through 2 times, hit no more, no less than 4 times, and I've witnessed at least 25 accidents, including 2 rollovers and a flip over. So the traffic, if you come here between 4 and 5 in the afternoon and 7 and 9 in the morning, the traffic out here is very, very tight. It's a little concerning when you turn off Black Rock onto Fairview and you see all the cars parked there because they can't fit in the parking lot of the development, or maybe they're friends of people that are visiting. But if you add to that and you're gonna have more cars on Fairview and you're gonna be coming around that corner, my house is the house that's gonna get run through again for the 3rd time.
Ms.
Many
Perry,
accidents here.
Ms. Perry, where is your house
It is
in comparison to
4 houses to the right of where they want to.
if you were standing on Fairview Avenue looking at the current 9-unit residential property, would your house be to the right towards Budsy's? Or
No,
would it be
I'm
to the
to-
left
well,
down the hill
I'm more
towards the fire station?
fire station.
Okay, thank you.
I'm at 473, but that corner right there, not many people make it. It's a lot. I mean, that corner's hard to navigate, and when there's cars parked there, it's gonna be a nightmare. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to contain the cars there. And I also had a concern about noise, as you can hear my noisy little dogs now, because I'm talking, about the noise and water pressure. Are we gonna lose water pressure when the Kent County adds that line? Because water pressure on this bottom of the street is horrendous as it is. They came out and checked it. They said it's at 47 pressure, but it's not coming in at that. So they don't know what's happening. So is that going to affect that in any way?
I'm sorry, Ms. Perry, but I cannot answer that question.
Okay.
Kent County Water evaluates the system that exists and the addition of these units to that system and decides if the developer needs to do anything to improve that system at that same preliminary plan engineering stage that we had discussed earlier.
Okay, I am concerned about the traffic because I've seen so many horrendous accidents out here, loss of life. It's horrendous. I'm concerned about my property value and just the abutment because they want it to be 20 feet. I need to have 20 feet from my neighbor just to have a chicken. You know what I mean? Like I can't have a chicken unless it's 20 feet away from my neighbor, but yet they're gonna put, I don't know, God knows how many people in an apartment building less than 20 feet from the people. You know what I mean? I think it doesn't make sense to me. If I have to have 20 feet for a chicken, I don't know why they can have less than that. You know what I mean? That's all. That's my concern. Those are my concerns. Sorry.
Thank you for your questions.
What was that?
Thank
Sorry,
you very much for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Crossman, anybody else?
Yes, AP. Ed, do you think you can bring them in? I don't know why I can't.
I don't know what's going on, Russ. Allowed to talk. Okay. You should have it.
It's not working.
Yeah, they're in, just not on.
Is she in? Oh, she's on the second sheet. Sorry about that. Could you just please state your name and address for the record, please?
Andrea Pinato from 38 Black Rock Road. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
All right, very good. My lawyer, Carol Ricker, did an excellent job of relaying the concerns that I have, more technical concerns. I just want to make a couple of statements. The already distinguished and longstanding wetlands and ecosystems, including a pond, streams, wildlife that depend on wetlands, high water table, and adjacent farmlands, will be negatively impacted by this commercial project. With the cutting down of trees, excavation, and construction of buildings close to the wetlands, groundwater will be rerouted and may very likely cause drainage problems resulting in potential flooding in this high water table zone, which could thus impact our septic systems as well. Over the years, the majority of homes around these wetlands have had flooded basements, requiring the installation of sump pumps and French drains. Even with these systems in place, with heavy rains, water still pools in some yards. My backyard is one of them. If water damage issues were found to be caused by construction of these buildings, this could potentially result in future lawsuits to the town. In my opinion, wetlands should always be a high priority since they provide food, water, cover, a resting place during migration, and breeding for a wide variety of wildlife. There's also concern for the impact of noise, light, and incursions on privacy to abutting property owners with the proposed distance between buildings and property lines reduced. In my case, reduced to 20 feet from my property line, which no buffer can adequately address. There's no shrub high enough to screen buildings and parking lots that will be visible to all the surrounding homes. There's also concern for possible water pressure and supply deficiencies due to a much higher demand for additional rental units. I myself have low pressure. Since these lands were originally plotted for single-family homes, and over the 58 years that I've lived here, there have been no other variances sought to build apartment buildings in the area. Approval of this project would certainly open up options for other mixed-use properties grandfathered into this neighborhood. I, for one, am not in favor of more commercial buildings in this predominantly single-family homeowner land area, or more traffic and potential accidents on Fairview Avenue and Black Rock Road. A single-family homeowner's view of a pleasing neighborhood is more of the same, living in harmony with nature. And lastly, to address the board, I believe the planning board should respect the scale and character of neighboring properties. After all, changing the character of the neighborhood should also be of concern to you. At what point do you have an obligation to make people whole who are being negatively impacted? To borrow a phrase from one of my neighbors, which there are 2 neighbors here with me tonight, having one apartment building in a predominantly single-family residential area is one thing, but now we're talking about an apartment complex. That's a whole different other dynamic. And that's all I have to say. And I do have 2 other homeowners, abutting homeowners here in my home, and they would also like to speak. One is Judy McGuire from 30 Black Rock Road. If you'll allow her to speak.
Yes, I'll allow her to speak. Go
Okay.
ahead, Judy.
I live on 30 Black Rock Road, and the road drains on 29 across the street from me and mine. They go into the wetlands and back of the proposed, it goes down in the back of proposed apartment site. If compromised, this is going to back up into the road and neighboring properties. Most residences in my neighborhood have sump pumps. It only, the ones with no cellars don't have it. And I've been there. My cellar's been flooded 3 times. And I finally got a generator, because if the power goes off and you got a sump pump, you've got a big problem. Thank you. My husband passed away, and now I'm alone on my own.
All right, and now we have Rebecca Nito from 32 Black Rock Road.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Nito. I believe the north building at the back of that property would abut the town swamp area where it drains into that little swampy area, which is right by my shed. Now, as it is, I see kids going over in there. I have a shed right there. I've got tools, I've got a tractor, I've got all kinds of yard equipment. How do I know what's going to happen? Like, what kind of people are going to be coming into this neighborhood? The other thing is, all of this land drains down to that area, and it goes underground, and it comes out behind 38, which is Andrea's property. So even though they're putting in a drain, where do you think it's going to go? It's going to travel underground, and it's going to follow the same path. Now you're adding extra car spaces. Where do you think the runoff for the asphalt is going to go? It's going to go right into the ground. So, I mean, a lot of questions I had have been addressed, but I have serious issues with this complex, especially since it's going to be right on top of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chairman, I could not hear Miss Nieto's address.
32 Black Rock Road.
Thank you.
Mr. Crossman, is there anybody else?
Mr. Flynn, at this time, I have no one else with their hand raised. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard on this matter? Just please raise your hand. Mr. Flynn, I have no one at this time.
Hey, Ed, Luke.
What's going on, Luke?
Not too much.
Mr. Wazika, mute your phone, please.
I got a planning. No, I got a planning commission meeting going right now, so believe me, I'm in.
Mr. Wazika, mute, please.
Hey, you got that data is all set for you, right?
Yeah, it's good.
I'm sorry.
I kind of answered some questions. Ian had some questions on it stuff. There's still stuff we need to bring out, but we can do that.
I don't know what you want to do.
Well, I tried to explain to her. It's not like, it's $190.
I don't know.
I don't know, but we should talk loud so no one can hear their conversation. I think that's a really good idea.
Mr.
Wazika, if you could hear us, could you please mute your phone?
And then I also had some questions about the rollout of the debt.
Does somebody have his phone number they can call him?
I do. I'm working on it.
We needed a baseline number for that.
Give me half a second, okay? I'll be right back.
Work it out if we were to go
Okay,
forward.
thank you, Mr. Cross.
To soften the burden, you know, so.
Do you want me to sing so we can mute out this conversation?
No. I just want to make sure you
Let's
had
all
everything you
sing.
need, dude.
Now I want that, Mr. Kenny. Now I want that.
Presentation, both the school committee and town council, so. we
The
have-
problems with these virtual things. They're
Yeah.
convenient
What are
for
you
some
looking at on
things, but
Monday? How much time are you figuring?
Everybody keep on talking. You won't hear them. That's all.
Yeah.
Be wary what you ask for, Mr. Cronin.
He has been, he has muted his phone. I can see.
All right.
Mr. Flynn, if I could just have a short moment.
I'm just gonna ask Mr. Crossman if there's anybody else with their hand up.
There is not, sir.
Okay, at this time, do you want to say, Mr. Cronin, before I close public hearing, would you like to say anything or?
I would, yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Cronin.
I actually see Mr. Duhamel would like to speak, and given his senior status, I'll invite him to make his comments first.
Okay, thank you.
One of the advantages of getting old. Yeah, many of the concerns raised is something that the requirements of state law, the requirements of the town of Coventry are obligated to be answered and met at the next level, the preliminary plan level. And I'll refer to the drainage design, no increase in runoff, no increase in flooding. All that has to be engineered at the next level. And what we have today on the plan is the limit of freshwater wetlands as verified by the DEM. We know what the limits are that we cannot encroach upon within 10 feet of those limits of that freshwater wetland. And that's a standard that's been upheld by DEM. We're not asking for any filling of wetlands or any increase in stormwater runoff to that wetland or to the abutting properties for that matter. So we will do additional soil testing. We'll know where the groundwater table is. We're not going to put the foundation of the new buildings within the groundwater table. All that work has to be done at the next level, and we know what the rules are. As far as the buffer, decreasing the buffer from 40 feet to 20 feet. Again, the existing residential buffer of 20 foot, if we were doing single family homes is met. We're doing multifamily where they require a 40-foot buffer. But one thing that we have with this site layout is that the back of the buildings, which don't have any back porches or anything of that nature. The back of the buildings is to the property line. We don't have parking against the property line. Given the shape of this site, given the courtyard aspect of the site, all the parking is going to be contained within the center of the site. So the noise from cars, the headlights of turning cars at night, all that will be shielded. And the buildings themselves will act as a buffer to the south property boundary. So we feel that's an advantage. We talked tonight about adding a fence along the south buffer with having a vegetative screen of 10 feet. That's something that would be designed and scrutinized by the Planning Commission, again, at the next level. The elephant in the room of the density, yes, we're going from 9 to 19 units and the associated parking with it. We're in an urban service area that lends itself to affordable housing, being on a bus route, being on public sewers, being on public water, having fire protection just down the street, having an area with sidewalks. This area is well suited from a planning perspective, as Mr. Lombardo has stated, with conformance with a comprehensive plan. So this area is not new development, it's infill development in my opinion. We're taking an existing lot that is already utilized for apartments, affordable apartments. This is going to be more apartments and add designation of 30 years of affordable apartments. the lot density, lot coverage that is being asked, of 47%. We have around the lot, 37%. I quickly calculated of grass and treed areas that will remain for the 1.5 acre lot. So over half an acre is going to be utilized as lawn area, as wooded area. So we're not paving from corner to corner, side to side. We're trying to be respectful of the neighbors and the buffers that we would provide. So all of the concerns raised by the abutters, I feel, have merit. They should be looked at, should be identified and addressed at the next level. And I feel what we propose tonight is something that can fit well within the town of Coventry. The owner is looking at shortening the buildings, making it less expansive from the stock building, if you will. I feel we still need the 20-foot setback on the most south easterly corner, but the other corners can be given a greater setback, given a reduced building. So we intend to work closely with the town planning staff and to resolve many of these issues, but it's going to take some effort at the next level.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
If I might have just one final comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Cronin.
Ms. Ricker did her usual fine and eloquent job stating the difficulties that our clients have with this project. But to say that it's not consistent with the local plan, comprehensive plan, and to point to the density as the issue is in some ways to mislead the board. The comprehensive plan states many of the things that Mr. Duhamel has covered with regard to public water supply, public sewers, major arterial highways, and the like. But the comprehensive plan on page 204 states, in conditions for allowing multifamily residential development, multifamily residential use will be allowed provided, number one is multifamily use is provided as planned development, also known as land development project, which is what we're doing here today. But number two is densities for multifamily residential use may range up to 20 dwelling units per acre. That's directly from our comprehensive plan in the town of Coventry. We're asking for far less than that. To suggest that this project doesn't belong in an R20 zone overlooks that an R20 zone is one of the most dense zoning areas in the town of Coventry. It goes from R20 to R2 to R3 to R5, to maybe other cities and towns have more dense zoning available, but this town doesn't. This is where our zoning ordinance says to go if you want to put up multifamily units. It says go to an R20, get a special use permit. That's it's only allowed there in the two village zones. That's it. 3 areas in the whole town. So to suggest that it doesn't belong in this area is inconsistent with our comprehensive plan, with our affordable housing plan, and with the zoning ordinance itself. Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. Mr. Crossman, anybody else before I close public hearing?
I do have another, Andrea Panato has, Carl, were you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay. Andrea Panato has raised her hand again. So let me see if I can bring her in. Ron, I apologize. I am struggling tonight. I don't know why. I've done this hundreds of times. I'm having trouble bringing people in. I don't know what kind of,
You've never had this problem before.
I don't know what kind of permission Mr. Wazika gave me. Ed, are you available? Mr. Wazika, sir. Maybe it's time for Heather to take a 5-minute break. What, Heather, do you want to take a break?
He's saying yes. So I'll go along with that 5-minute break.
Yep.
Heather, you're muted.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a,
Yep.
can we take a break, Heather? Is that good?
Sure, that's wonderful.
Okay.
Well, we're going to take a 5-minute break and hopefully we can clear up these technical difficulties.
Right, and then I'll bring Andrea back in.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Mr. Flynn,
Yes,
I am all set now. I was able to talk to the manager and I am all now set. I can bring in the next person if you are ready.
You are now
Okay,
worthy of doing it, Russell. You are now worthy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I believe everything, is everybody else back on the board? I don't see Mr. Kenny yet.
No, Mr. Kenny's not here yet. And neither is Mr. Anderson. Unless, Mr. Kenny's here.
There's Mr. Kenny. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson's back. I believe we're all set. Let me see if Andrea still wants to talk. Andrea, you're muted right now. Did you want to speak again?
Hello, board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Craig Pinardo. I'm Andrea's son.
Okay, name and address for the record, please.
Craig Pinardo, 38 Black Rock Road. I know most of you that I'm looking at here on the screen have been present this evening. I just wanted to ensure that you all know that for 20 of the 40 years that my mother has lived here, I lived here with her. When I visit her coming off of Fairview Avenue onto Black Rock or off of Black Rock onto Fairview, the folks that rent that apartment building now do not have adequate parking and often park up and down Fairview Avenue. I've had multiple close calls pulling out of Black Rock onto Fairview where I've had to slam on brakes because I couldn't see cars coming up and down Fairview Avenue. It's very, very dangerous. I was astonished by the amount of variances and requests and exceptions that were being asked for to develop this here. Over the years, I've multiple times either had to call the police or walk over to break up loud music and happenings that were going on as a result of the families that live here now on the little bit of land that they have. Gatherings often take place in the parking lot, in their cars, out of their cars, doors wide open. People that I feel live in apartments have a different respect to the neighbors than the homeowners do. This is a very lovely neighborhood here on Black Rock and Fairview Avenue made up of single family homes. I ask any of you, Heather, Glenn, Lori, James, Kevin, I'd like to find out if this development was being constructed alongside your single family home, what your feedback would be. As a result of COVID, I would ask any of you who want to come here on property and on site in masks, I'd be happy to walk around this property with you and look at the garbage and trash that often blows in from this apartment community into my mother's yard. I pay for the landscaping services here and they often tell me about the trash that blows in from the apartment building. The dumpster is often overflowed with trash, probably from public dumping and dumping from the apartment community. It's rather disgusting. So Sandy, Chris, Tom, next time you come in the store, Tom, you and I can talk. You know, I'd like any of you to find out if this development was going up against your single family home in your neighborhood, if you would approve it under the conditions that are being met or haven't been met or being asked for. This is a very difficult property development. I think it's too tight. I don't think any of you would approve this, despite the affordable housing requirements that you feel that you need. I think there's plenty of land in this town where a development like this could be built with plenty of space in between structures for parking. I'm looking at the parking plan. I don't know how anyone could pull out of one of those spots and not back into the car behind them. I mean, if you really scrutinize that plan, most people drive SUVs. I don't know how they could back out of a spot. If I was to exit that apartment community and someone was pulling in, there's no question someone would either have to back in or back out, let people on or off Fairview. I think it's a mess and it really needs to be reevaluated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Crossman, is there anybody else with their hands up?
Mr. Flynn, at this time, there is nobody else with their hands up.
Okay. Before I close public, there is still public comment. There is still no hands up, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
I have a motion and I hear a second. I'll go through a roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Clunian,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. So public hearing is now closed. So is there any other questions from the board, or I see Mr. Clunian's hand up?
I just have one question. Mr. Cronin, when you cited an item 2 out of the comprehensive plan, and did you say 20 units per acre?
The English does not flow like Shakespeare, Mr. Clooney, so I'll read it again.
Thank you.
Densities for multifamily residential use may range up to 20 dwelling units per acre.
Okay, so this is a 1.5 acre site. So that would be a total of
I guess you could have 30.
30. Okay, yeah, I just wanted.
I mean those.
I just didn't. I wasn't quite sure, and I was trying to do the math, but I didn't hear it. Like
Yeah, it's not poetry.
went a little fast.
It precedes Mr. Crossman, so
Okay.
he never would have allowed that.
Anybody else have any questions? I heard something from the lawyer representing Miss Panato. Dad, could you jump in on this? She mentioned that this project, we do many of these projects, would be precedent setting with all the stipulations and settings on this project. It's something I can't answer. Could you answer that?
Sure. Although, I think she raised a number of interesting points for the board to consider. That's one that I actually take exception with. I'm often asked to weigh in on the whole precedent setting aspect of certain projects, and all land is unique. And I am not concerned that if the board were to approve this with the significant amount of waivers requested, that it would be a bad idea from a precedent setting standpoint. So I disagree with Ms. Ricker on that point. And the reason for that is because of the uniqueness of land. So certainly if another project were to come before the board that was 1.5 acres with this level of development and a comp permit, then you might be able to have an applicant argue apples to apples. But I think that would still be a difficult proposition. So that's my comment about that. I'm not concerned about the precedent setting aspect of an approval of this project.
Thank you for that clarification. Anybody else on the board have any questions? Okay, I don't see any questions. I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Clunian.
I just have one more question, and I meant to ask this. This is for Mr. Duhamel. Are we proposing foundations or slabs?
Slabs at this point.
Okay, because of the high water table. I was just wondering about that, because if you weren't and they had to raise it up, there might be some ADA issues getting in and out of the units. And then the other thing is, did I hear you towards the end there in your presentation say that the dimensions on these buildings as shown on the plan could change, or?
Yeah,
is it something you're considering now, or?
Yes, Rich Pizzuco, Ron Pizzuco, they're high-end builders. They have many apartments across the state. They bought this recently to renovate the nine units up, and they've been putting granite countertops and those things in, but they had these stock plans, if you will, with a 31 by 100 foot width. They're looking at 32 by 80 foot width now, with a facade that's more conducive, not just a flat face. They're working with an architect, Union Studio, so they're committed to this site, this project, bringing the project up to speed, and they just, they need time, and the master plan was just to, make certain that the commission was in favor of going forward, so.
So 32 by 80, I mean, I'm gonna take out a calculator, but there are 5 units, so it's 80 divided by 5. That's 16 feet width times 32. So they'd be about 1,000 square feet, 2 floors,
Yes.
but you'd shorten the buildings by 20 feet. And what would that do for, would that help you at all, as far as these waivers? Other than,
The 20-foot I would like to maintain for the property where the abutter is written that letter in favor. But it would, Mr. Smith's property, but it would increase the buffer to the Bernardo Trust lands. So I still would like to maintain that 20-foot.
yeah. How about the space between the buildings?
Oh, that would increase substantially.
From?
Well, between the new buildings, but I would like to maintain the what's requested from the existing building to the most north building at the end of the courtyard. I would like to maintain that distance, but between the new buildings, that'll be open wide up.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else from the board? Mr. Duhamel, you do realize we are voting on this project tonight, so we're not voting on a variation of this project.
Yes.
I just want to make that clear. We're voting on what's in front of us. If you wanted to make a variation and come back, that would, but we are voting on what we see in front of us.
I can say it won't get any denser. I'll defer to Mr. Cronin if you feel.
Mr. Cronin, would you like to comment on that?
I think the result of the changes that Mr. Duhamel mentioned would lessen some of the requests for relief, but I didn't hear him say that it would change the necessity of the special use permit or even completely relieve the applicant of the necessity of the variances. So it's really just a matter of modification, and this board is an experienced board, and you know that when we come back at preliminary, it's likely to look a little different anyway. Whether it be the building size change or the number of units, or there are still a lot of engineering investigation to be completed, and I often start off before this board with high numbers of proposed units and come back with fewer after speaking with DEM. So I don't, as it won't alleviate the necessity of either the special use permit or the variances, and given the experience of this board and their understanding that when we come back at preliminary, it's likely to look different. I don't see the benefit of postponing this at this time. If the chair disagrees, I'm willing to discuss it.
No, I just wanted to make sure that, that Mr. Duhamel was clear on the fact that we're voting on the project and the dimensions in front of us at this point. Thank you. Anybody else from the board? Go ahead, Mr. Mattson.
Okay, since things may change, is it possible to look at getting the whole project, the 19 units, so you get an extra couple of affordable housing units?
That would require us to take this step again, Mr. Mattson.
Just asking.
Yeah, so that would be a different project than the one we're presenting today. So that's probably not an option for us.
And what is the, I know you just mentioned it, and that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. There's a potential, because as you go to get some of these approvals, that you would reduce the number of units. That would also necessitate a completely different project and new applications. Is that correct?
No, I think if we had the same, so this is a comprehensive permit. We're coming before this board under the comp permit, requesting 25% affordable. And so that ratio cannot change. The actual size or positioning of the units will likely change given, you know, the existence of the wetland and the other unusual shape of the lot and those other aspects. But this comp permit master plan hearing is based on the 25% affordable with the 3 units, and that will not change. So if we have to decrease the number of units, we will not be able to decrease the number of affordable units, I guess is the most direct way of saying it, Mr. Clunian.
Okay. I guess what I was trying to find out is if reducing the units was on the table, because I can't speak for everyone else on the board, but again, you know, my concern was with the density to begin with.
Yeah, and the board, you know, even though it's a comprehensive permit, I shouldn't say even though, because it's a comprehensive permit, the board has even more latitude to place conditions and restrictions and things that they like to see than even they usually do, where they're limited to just the subdivision regulations. In this case, you have, we're asking for a special use permit under the zoning ordinance. You have the dimensional variances. So you have the ability to shape this in a way that the Planning Commission doesn't normally have.
Okay.
Mr. D'Agostino can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that's true.
No, I would concur with that.
Mr. Cronin, I think what I'm hearing from the board, I don't want to speak for them, but what I've been hearing is, you know, there is a liking to what Mr. Duhamel said of maybe some reductions in square footage. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Mr. Mattson has his hand up.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go back and beat this dead horse called affordable housing. So if we change the plans, or if you guys decided to change the plans, I know we're voting on what we're voting is what we see before us. You come back and you say you've changed the plans and now it's 8, but you're still at the 25% affordable component. So now instead of 3 units, there would be 2.
No.
Am I getting this concept right or wrong?
That is not correct. Yeah. So it's three. The town will receive the benefit of 3 affordable housing units.
Okay, that's my point.
Any other questions from the board?
Mr. Chair, Glenn Anderson, you know, thanks, being the simple folk. Hey, for once, you know, Mr. Duhamel did spell out an actual comprehensive permit. I mean, I like to see it hit for the cycle as far as amenities, water and sewer, transportation. Finally, you know, we hit it. Mr. Cronin, I'm just confused. So, you know, you came up with the, you know, 20 units per acre, you know, in the ordinance. And yet, you know, and explain this to me, please. And explain to whoever doesn't get it, and I might be the only one, but yet we're still asking for, you know, we're still asking for a waiver for 47% of lot coverage.
So
I can see why there's a little confusion. It says we can put it there but you're asking for 40%, relief on the lot coverage.
So when I was speaking, Mr. Anderson, of that, and when Mr. Lombardo spoke earlier, we're looking at the comprehensive plan of the town of Coventry and the affordable housing element of that plan.
Yeah.
That is not consistent with our zoning ordinance. So despite those statements in the comprehensive plan, and despite those statements in the affordable housing aspect of that comprehensive plan, those statements have not been adopted into our zoning ordinance. So we are requesting relief from the zoning ordinance as it has been adopted by the town of Coventry. So in a comprehensive permit, you have to deal with both the comprehensive plan of the town as it's been written and adopted. Ours is getting a little gray long in the tooth, but it's there. And you also have to simultaneously deal with the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations as they have been adopted under state law. So all of these elements have to be balanced. So that what I was speaking of comes from our comprehensive plan that does not exist in our zoning ordinance.
Okay. And the only other thing was I counted, you get nine units, so you're estimating 8, 2 cars per unit, right? So
Yes.
I believe all the parking is pretty much filled up. So there is no additional parking. Is that accurate in this complex? If everyone's filled up and we came to park, it wouldn't create more on-street parking?
There is literally one space available extra, Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
39 spaces, 2 handicapped.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Anybody like to make a motion on this project? Anybody like to make a motion for or against this project as presented?
All right, I'll make a motion. Make a motion to move it forward to a master plan.
I have a motion to move the plan forward to master plan as written, Mr. Reyes?
Yeah.
Mr. Flynn, may I interrupt you for one moment?
Absolutely, Mr. Cronin.
Mr. Flynn, may I request a 5-minute break so I may speak with my client?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is everybody on the board okay with a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cronin. We'll give you 5 minutes. Need to get this airtight.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, yes, Mr. Cronin, go ahead.
first, I appreciate the courtesy of allowing me a moment to speak with my client. Thank you.
No problem, Mr. Cronin.
as much as we appreciate the vote of confidence from Mr. Reyes in making the motion to approve, my clients would like the opportunity to address some of the comments that have been made tonight and respectfully ask for a continuance to next month to do so.
Okay, Mr. Corner, Mr. Dave, Mr. D'Agostino, I see a hand up. I was gonna ask you to comment anyway.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to address somewhat of a procedural matter. If the board is inclined to allow Mr. Cronin's clients to, I think it's to withdraw the present application and come back next month, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. I just want to address Mr. Reyes' motion, which I know has not received a second. In light of Mr. Cronin's comment, I would ask Mr. Reyes to respectfully withdraw the motion. And I just want to I want to provide the basis for why I'm making that request. Normally motions are accompanied by certain findings of fact and certain statements with regards to the waivers that have been requested. I know Mr. Reyes, probably in an effort to move this forward and advance it, at least maybe for a discussion, did not set out any findings of fact. So in light of that, I'm going to ask that he withdraw his motion, or and only in light of the fact that Mr. Cronin appears to be requesting to withdraw the application or to come back next month and with an updated version. Again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I'm just concerned about Mr. Reyes's motion that it
I
be
respectfully
addressed.
withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, and thank you, Mr. D'Agostino, for explaining that. I guess our next meeting is February 24th.
Mr. Flynn, may I opine for a moment, please?
Absolutely.
I would like some clarification. I've heard what Mr. Attorney D'Agostino said. I've heard what Attorney Cronin said. I want to know whether he's withdrawing and submitting a whole new proposal or asking for a continuance, because it matters for advertising purposes. So I need to know what Mr. Cronin's plan is here.
So, Mr. Crossman, I guess I would begin by saying that I'm requesting a continuance, and I would supplement that by saying that it will not be an entirely new plan, and that we would have no objection to a motion to reopen the public comment.
Good, because that was going to be one of my second point, because it's not fair to the public. You have to give them a chance, and you have to give Attorney Ricker a chance to comment on any changes that you might make.
I will do so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin.
So Ron, that's I'm all set now.
So I'll ask for a motion to continue this to the February 24th. Is that our next meeting, Mr. Crossman?
I apologize. Yes, it is, sir. February 24th.
And I'll need a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion to continue this.
Second.
I have a motion to continue, and I have a second to that motion to continue to the next meeting, February 24th. And I'll just do a quick roll call. Mr. Reyes?
Aye.
Mr. Kenny?
Aye.
Mr. Porcelli?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Mattson?
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski?
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Clunian?
Aye.
And Chairman Flynn also says aye. So, Mr. Cronin, this will be continued to the next meeting, which is February 24th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the board.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Got it.
Okay, next, we have another public informational meeting. It's an amended master plan comprehensive permit for Woodland Manor 3 owner, HK Woodland 3 LLC, applicant Halkeen Management, proposed 96 unit residential development that would include 96 affordable units in the Woodland Manor apartment complex, AP 27, lot 150, zoned planned unit development with total property area approximately 19.2 acres, and it's on Woodland Drive. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One quick note, it's 92 units.
May I say something, please?
Yeah, it says 96 on my agenda.
Rick, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, let me just
Yes.
explain. Yes, the ad does say 96. But the proposal is for 92 units.
Okay.
So I just want to let, and I've spoken with Attorney D'Agostino about this. It's not a problem with respect to, advertising or anything like that. We're not increasing the number of units. But at the time that we had to get the application in to go in the newspaper, it was 96 units. So, but then we discovered later it was 92. So for clarification purposes, it's a 92 unit development project here tonight.
And Mr. Chairman, for the record, I did discuss that with Director Crossman, and I'm comfortable that the notice is sufficient for the discussion this evening.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the confusion. My paperwork says 96, but it's a 92.
I'm sorry also, I was reading off two different pieces of paper.
So it's a 92 unit, all affordable. Anybody here representing the applicant?
Yes, sir. My name is Mark Liberati, and I'm representing the applicant.
Address, please.
I'm sorry?
Address, please.
Address is 57 Narragansett Avenue, Jamestown, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have with me here tonight two principals from my client, Mark Hess and Carolyn Caranci. They're both here if you want to wave. I also have three experts that will be testifying, who will be introduced when they do in fact testify. Is the chairman ready for my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. The owner of the property, HK Woodland 3 LLC, is an affiliate of Hall-Keen Management. Woodland Manor 1 and 2, which are projects which are adjacent to this development, are sister properties owned since 2004 by another affiliate of Hall-Keen Management. The key principles of Hall-Keen Management are the majority members in HK Woodland Manor 3 and Woodland Manor 1 and 2. Hall-Keen Management is also the management company for Woodland Manor 1 and 2 and will be for the proposed development. Hall-Keen is a real estate management and investment company based in Norwood, Massachusetts, and owns or manages approximately 7,800 units, of which 6,400 units are affordable and 1,300 units, excuse me, market rate units. And those projects are in existence throughout the East Coast. Hall-Keen has been a good steward of Woodland Manor 1 and 2, has maintained the property in excellent condition, and is now engaged right now in making substantial capital improvements to those projects, Woodland Manor 1 and 2. Hall-Keen has every intention of Woodland Manor 1 and 2, I'm sorry. Hall-Keen has every intention of building and maintaining Woodland Manor 3 in the same high quality way. The Woodland Manor project was created in 1976 as a planned unit development. The town of Coventry approved a master plan, which included the Coventry Health Center, which is now known, I believe, as Haven Health Center, Woodland Manor 1, Woodland Manor 2, and Woodland Manor 3. The planned unit development plan showed an integrated private road and utility system, which was intended to service the entire project. The health center and Woodland Manor 1 and 2 were constructed soon after PUD approval was PUD approval was secured from the town of Coventry. Woodland Manor 3 languished primarily because there was a dispute with DEM as to the exact limit of the wetland. That dispute ended up being resolved in Superior Court. However, the prior owner and the town were engaged in another lawsuit as to whether the Woodland Manor 3 project was subject to impact and sewer assessment fees imposed after the PUD plan had been approved. That lawsuit resulted in a consent judgment, which does bear on this application. Fast forward to 2021, and Holkeen, as the new owner of Woodland Manor 3, is now prepared to build the project. The proposed project, which is 100% affordable, is presented as a comprehensive permit application. We seek master plan approval under that application. Although this project is being ushered through the permitting process as provided in comprehensive permit and land development laws and regulations, the substantive law to be applied is that law laid out in the consent judgment. The consent judgment provided that Woodland Manor 3 is vested with the same rights as the first 3 phases, and therefore does not need to seek additional municipal review before receiving a building permit, so long as the plan does not deviate from the original PUD plan. If any amendments to the 1976 plan are sought, procedures previously utilized should be followed. This is all according to the consent judgment with the town. The original PUD plan provided for 144 units in 6 24-unit buildings. The procedure previously utilized for a deviation from the original plan is found in section 5M of the old PUD ordinance. That ordinance provides that if the requested change is minor, the town council or planning commission may approve or deny the change. If the requested change is substantial, the town council or planning commission shall require submission of an amended site plan and a final site plan. In 1982, the site plan was modified to provide for a single building with 126 units. That modification was considered to be minor and was approved at that point. In this case, the proposal is to build 2 buildings instead of the original plan for 6 buildings. And the total number of proposed units is now 92, as opposed to the original proposal for, hold on, was that 144? Yeah, 144 units. We are arguing that the reduction in the total number of buildings and units may make this application a minor change to the original PUD approved plan, consistent again with what this board did in 1982. 100% of the units will qualify as affordable housing. The construction of 92 affordable units will contribute in a significant way to the town's obligation to provide that 10% of its housing stock qualify as affordable housing. Our expert has provided a fiscal analysis that shows a net loss to the town. The assumption used and based on data accumulated from a number of other projects is that the project will add at any one time 2 additional students to the school system. Of course, that number will fluctuate in any one year, and the town may lose more money or lose less money in any year, depending on whether kids are injected into the school system or not. But we believe that that fact is outweighed by the significant contribution this project makes to achieving the 10% mandate. I mean, this application, as the board is well aware, differs from the prior application in that all of these units will be qualified as affordable. That's my presentation. With that, I'd like to, unless anyone has any comments about it, I'd like to present some expert testimony.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so my first expert is Brett Nealon.
Present.
Brett's here.
Name and address, please, Brett.
My name is Brett Nealon. I'm a member of Gordon Archibald Engineers located at 200 Main Street in Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
And Mr. Nealon, you are a registered professional engineer in Rhode Island, is that correct?
That is correct.
And do you have any experience in land development projects?
Yes, I do.
And what experience do you have?
I focus on site development, stormwater management, and environmental engineering, and I have roughly 2 dozen similar projects with site development.
And was that experience gained over 8 years of working with GRA, with GRA?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So would you please describe the site, the surrounding area, and the natural characteristics of the parcel?
Yes. Mr. Crossman, would you mind bringing up the existing conditions plan?
Sure, Brett, just give me 1 second, please.
Yep.
Hold on, your application was rather large.
Yeah, it was. Sorry.
That's all right. Let me just see here.
I can start while you're getting that going, Russell.
Yeah, I'm almost there.
All right. So as Mr. Liberati mentioned, our client is proposing 2 multi-residential buildings totaling 92 units on lot 150, plat 27. The parcel is surrounded by commercial facilities along Route 3 to the north and northwest. It is surrounded by the existing residential complex known as Woodland Manor. Yep. And
Which one? This one here?
Yeah, that one, Russell. And could you rotate it? It might help.
Yes, I will rotate just this one sheet. Hold on a minute.
It's a large parcel, so they fit it in.
How's that?
That's great. Thank you. All right. Sorry about that. So commercial facilities are located along Route 3 to the north and northwest. The existing residential complex known as Woodland Manor facility to the west and south, and the wetlands to the east. The roughly 20-acre parcel is primarily undeveloped, as shown on the plans, and includes a large wetland area, which is delineated by the blue line with the A abbreviations. Yes, that's correct. And everything to the right of that, to the east, is a designated wetland. There's a surface water known as Old Hickory Brook that traverses along the southern property line and continues to the west towards the Mishnock River. The wetland and vegetation provides a buffer to the closest development, which is approximately 0.4 miles to the Ramblewood Estates. There are no other natural features or characteristics found on the parcel. As shown, the parcel extends to and has access to Route 3 to the north. The proposed project does not utilize this access to Route 3 and instead seeks to expand the existing private driveway and roadway of the Woodland Manor facility. By avoiding this alteration, we minimize any disturbance to the natural features of the parcel. And I believe that answers your question, Mr. Liberati.
Okay, so between this project and Nooseneck Hill Road, the development is primarily commercial, is it not?
That is correct.
And the use of the property to the west is the similar property, which is Woodland Manor 1 and 2, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how far is it to the nearest residential development across the wetland complex to the east?
Nearest development to the east is approximately 0.4 miles.
Okay, and going south, does that wetland complex extend south as well?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Please describe the proposed development and the design considerations.
Russell, could you change to the next plan? Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So the construction will be phased to minimize the active land disturbance, which is a design aspect recommended by the DEM as shown. Groundwater was found approximately 3 feet below grade in the area of building A. So we are proposing to fill throughout the project area to alleviate the shallow groundwater conditions for stormwater design, to level the facility to prevent steep slopes, and to minimize the disturbance of any natural characteristics, which includes the wet. We intend the stormwater facilities to be infiltration systems located within the parking lot, as well as a sand filtration system to treat the existing parking lot between the buildings. The proposed development has been designed to minimize disturbance to the maximum extent. As Mr. Liberati mentioned, there was previously a ruling to the wetlands that allows encroachment. However, we are trying to prevent that at all costs. We will slightly encroach it, but we are not near the ruling. The project requires approval from the DEM, Office of Water Management, for both the stormwater management design and to provide an opinion on the wetland impact.
And those permits will be secured if this approval is granted and presented at preliminary plan stage. Is that correct?
That is correct, in accordance with the town's criteria.
Right. Could you please describe the access to utilities?
Yes. The project has access to Kent County Water Authority, the town's public sewer, as well as National Grid for electric and gas. We have been in contact already with the Kent County Water Authority. We will need to extend the 16-inch water line on Route 3 to provide sufficient water pressure. That will be coordinated fully with the Kent County Water Authority. The sewer system will be connected to the existing gravity lines within the Woodland Manor facility, which then flows to the on-site, the pump station located within Woodland Manor, and will then be diverted to the town's treatment system.
Okay, could you please describe the setback considerations?
Yes. So the town, as Mr. Liberati mentioned, doesn't have, I should rephrase that, I'm sorry. So the project is zoned PUD, as Mr. Liberati mentioned. The town doesn't have a setback requirement for the zoning. We were asked by the town to review the existing conditions of Woodland Manor 1 and 2 to determine a setback criteria. Our review of the May 2004 as-built plans indicated the closest setbacks range from 55 feet to 80 feet to the parcels, the commercial parcels located along Route 3. The closest building we have proposed is Building B, which is approximately 100 feet from the adjacent lot, which exceeds this reference setback.
Right, so the proposed project setbacks exceed those that exist in Woodland Manor 1 and 2, is that correct?
That is correct.
Could you please describe for the commission the proposed parking?
Yes, so similar to the setback requirement is the PUD doesn't have a set defined requirement due to the zoning. We use the town's code as a reference of 2 parking stalls per unit. Our proposed plans show approximately 1.7 spaces per unit. For reference, the existing Woodland Manor has about 1.3 spaces per unit, and our client has indicated there has not been any issues to date with this parking ratio.
I don't have any further questions of this witness.
Okay, you have another witness?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
My next witness is, and excuse me if I mispronounce this, John Scarp.
John Scarp.
Scarp. Sorry.
Name and address, please, for the record.
My name is John Scarab. I'm with Gordon R. Archbold Engineers, 200 Main Street, Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
And John, do you have any professional degrees?
Yeah, I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I'm a Senior Traffic Transportation Engineer, and I also hold my PTOE certificate, which is a Professional Traffic Operations Engineers certificate.
And do you work for GRA?
I have worked for GRA since I came out of school. I've been there over 17 years now.
And could you tell us how many road development projects or road design projects you've been involved with?
A lot. 50 or more. That's a ballpark. I don't have an exact number.
Okay. I ask that the witness be qualified as an expert. Based on his qualifications.
Yeah.
Okay. Please describe ingress and egress into this project.
Certainly. I don't know if you have the availability to bring up an overhead view of the location, Russ?
Mr. Crossman?
I'm working on it. All right, will this work?
Yes, that should be fine. That should do.
Let me just explain to everybody that their project site is right over here, but we're going to concentrate on wood thrush and this other where the traffic signal is over here. So
correct. So these buildings are going to use the existing accesses at Wood Thrush Drive and Woodland Drive, as Russell just showed you. There's no new access points. That means all the traffic that is coming into and out of these new buildings will use these two accesses. So the one at the south of Woodland Drive is a signalized intersection. So everyone that comes to the intersection would have to stop if the light says so. And then up at Wood Thrush Drive, only Wood Thrush Drive is controlled, and it is stop control. Traffic on Nooseneck Hill Road is free flow.
Could you describe Nooseneck Hill Road?
Yes, Nooseneck Hill Road previously to the fall of 2019 was a 4-lane section, 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes southbound, and had roughly 10-foot shoulders. Now in the fall of 2019, the section from about 2,000 feet south of Woodland to about 2,500 feet north of Woodland was revised to a 5-lane section. And what DOT did was they essentially got rid of the shoulders, kept 2 lanes in each direction, and created a 2-way left turn lane for traffic here. Now what that did was that changed the operations at the signal, and they put a brand new signal in at Woodland Drive. When I say brand new, I mean they replaced the existing signal, and they added a left turn lane of 175 feet for left turns from Nooseneck Hill Road onto Woodland Drive.
And could you describe current traffic conditions and peak hours?
Sure. In general, in this area of Rhode Island, traffic is the same as about everywhere else. You have a morning peak hour sometime between 7 and 8 p.m. or 7 and 8 a.m. Sorry. You have a midday peak, which can occur anywhere between 11 and 1 p.m. And then you have your afternoon peak period, which is generally between 4 and 5 p.m. We know that the volumes that are out there right now are not indicative of what traffic normally is. COVID has caused chaos for everyone. And when we looked at this project, we knew that we couldn't go out and take a direct traffic count because the numbers would be way low. We're figuring based on what we're seeing across the state that the numbers would be anywhere from 15 to 25% low. And that's a guess. We don't know for sure. So for this project, what we had to do is we had to use some historic data and our own sense of the area. We worked around here for years. Our company is very familiar with the area. And what we did was we used some conservative values. And what that means is we have a traffic volume that we think it is, and we say, well, that's not going to be good enough for the board. Let's pump that number way up and see where we end up with. So we use a conservative set of numbers for these analysis.
And could you describe how this project, Woodland Manor 3, if it were developed, will affect traffic conditions?
Sure. So we did our trip generation for the project, and we found that For a whole day, for a whole regular weekday, we're expecting 170 trips from these new buildings. And that 170 trips is all the trips into plus all the trips out of the building. So it's usually 50-50. Now, we found that our busiest period of traffic for people who are entering and leaving the site is in the PM peak, and that amounts to about 57 trips in the worst period of traffic on Gooseneck Hill Road. The actual highest peak period for traffic leaving the facility is during the midday peak, and that number is about 65 trips. So they're essentially identical. We're talking anywhere between 50 to 70 trips in those peak hours, which is roughly 1 a minute, either entering or exiting the site.
Can you describe the history of accidents at this location and how additional traffic is expected to impact safety?
Sure. In our line of business with traffic engineering safety, we normally look at the last 3 years of recent crash data. So I took that data up to December of 2019, which, if you were listening, is encompasses that last 2 months of the revised cross section. Now, what I found was there weren't any crashes associated with that revised cross section that had been recorded yet. So all of the crash data was from the 4-lane section as it existed with the shoulders. What I found was that the crashes were scattered, as you would expect, between the signalized intersection and the unsignalized intersection up at Woodthrush. I also found that there were some segment crashes that were related to the entrance at the post office. There wasn't anything overly concerning about these crashes. There wasn't a particular crash that was recurring. And based on the new cross section, I would expect these crashes to go way down even further. As a side note, we have data from a study we did on this road in 2004, 2005. And when I look back and went at that crash data, those numbers were way higher than they are now. Now they're less. When I say now, I mean that 3-year period before COVID. So what I did was, I told you before that I jacked the volume numbers way up. If I do that, it makes my crash rate go down. It makes it go better. Well, that's not going to fly. So for the capacity analysis, I pumped the volumes way up to make it more conservative. And then for the crash analysis, I said, well, let's go way down. Let's reduce that number that we think it is so that I'll get a worse crash rate. Even doing that, my crash rate numbers are still less than half what they were 15 years ago. With the few amount of trips that are being added in the peak hours and throughout the day, I don't see a reason why safety at either of these two intersections will be compromised by the small amount of additional traffic that's going to be added by these two buildings.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
Hey, thank you. Do you have any other witnesses?
One more witness, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call Joseph Lombardo.
Okay, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, for the record, name is Joseph Lombardo. I reside at 7 Clamshell Drive in Westerly.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lombardo, you've testified before this board as an expert tonight, have you not?
Yes, I have tonight and many times in the past.
And with and for those reasons, I ask that Mr. Lombardo be qualified as an expert.
Yes.
Okay. So please describe the site and the surrounding area.
Well, I think the engineers have done a great job of describing the site. You know, it's in an area, a mixture of business and single family homes. You also have the other two portions of Woodland Manor right next door, again, large multifamily buildings. So it's, you know, it's a mixed area. It's a business area with these apartment complexes mixed in along Route 3.
Describe the zoning designation for this area.
Well, as you did, Mark, in your opening, this is part of a planned unit development zone that was established quite a number of years ago. It's been changed a bit through the ensuing years, but present zoning remains that allows this type of use in this type of building to be constructed on that site.
Okay, and I'm sure the board knows, but just quickly describe what a comprehensive permit is.
Yes, I mean, that's basically the vehicle through state law that allows this commission to become the permitting authority for this type of project based on density, based on any types of variances that might need from zoning. It allows it to make all of those provisions and rulings and part of a decision to whether to approve a project such as this.
And please describe the proposed development for the commission.
Right. Well, as again, from the site plan and discussion, it's two multifamily buildings, one that has 43 units in it and one that has 49 units. And there's a mixture in both those buildings of 1 and 2 bedroom units. And as stated at the outset, all 92 of these units will qualify as low and moderate income housing units by state law, and there will be ability for the town to add those into their inventory towards the 10% goal established by the state.
And Coventry has a affordable housing plan, does it not?
Yes, well, all the cities and towns in Rhode Island were required to prepare those plans, have them adopted, and then incorporate it into the housing element of the comprehensive plan, which Coventry does.
And do those documents detail what the current supply of affordable housing or low and moderate income housing is in Coventry?
Yes, and it does, and that, of course, that was in the timetable when the plan was written. But we can get accurate updates from Housing Works RI, and the latest numbers I believe that I had is that the town was at 5.35%, which is a little over half of their goal towards 10%.
And how will this project address that deficit?
Well, as the best way to describe how this works for this project in particular is, we demonstrate obviously that there's a need for affordable housing in Coventry if you're at 5.35%. But more specifically for this project, it demonstrates in reading the affordable housing plan that there's a need for this family type housing rental, and this will directly target that. There's a specific goal in the plan that talks about providing 40 to, I believe, 150 units in this type of category in the affordable housing plan. So 92 of them will go a long way towards meeting that one specific target within the affordable housing plan. So those are the two-part test. Is there a general need for this type of housing in the town? Yes. And does this project address a specific need in the town? Yes, it does.
And did you review the comprehensive plan for the town?
Yes, I did. Again, as I said, there's the two main portions that I would be reviewing, obviously, is the land use element, the housing element, which would have the affordable housing plan as part of that. And then, just to make sure, again, that we're in compliance with that plan and in conformity with that plan, because that is one of the requirements for this commission to make on approving this project. That has to make those same findings.
Did not the comp plan specifically address this site?
Yes, it actually does. It actually calls it out by name, and by name I mean calling it Woodland 3. It describes the plat and lot, and so it's and what's interesting, part of the discussion talks about densities on a number of sites that are identified in your plan of up to 33 units per acre with water and sewer and utilities and roads in place. So it's certainly looking at the ability to have these high density projects, and they actually specify where they are, and this is one of those sites.
It was identified as action item 2.7, was it not?
That's exactly the one, and it talks about it as a 20-acre parcel. It talks about the other two adjacent complexes, and again, that goal for that area was between 40 and 150 units. So at 92, we're kind of in the middle of that.
Right. And the comp plan also addresses comprehensive permits, does it not?
Yes, it does. You know, one of the other components of these affordable housing plans is to identify a number of strategies and methods and ways of achieving those numbers. And so when the state reviews it, they're looking at, they know what your deficit is, but how are you going to achieve those numbers? And one of the things that this comprehensive plan and this affordable housing plan identifies specifically is using the comprehensive permit process, which is the subject of this matter and this application tonight.
And it specifically mentioned Woodland Manor 3 as being a site suitable for a comprehensive permit, did it
Yeah,
not?
absolutely. And it's because of its attributes, the availability of utilities, the bus lines, the access, all of those things point to that exact one. Of that site is I believe one of 5 or 6 sites in the plan specifically.
So based on your review of the comprehensive plan and the zoning code, in your opinion, is this application consistent with both of those documents?
Yes, it is. This was a very straightforward analysis, looking at all of those things that I would normally look at, and specifically when a project site is called out with high density, and the fact that this particular developer does 100% affordable, that's a real strong application for the town to review, to make findings of fact positively to approve a project like this. Yes.
And did you also do a fiscal impact study?
I did. This, again, as we know, is a checklist item. And what I did here is I tried to approach this as a normal project where I would look at historical data from a variety of other high density multifamily buildings, both apartments and condominiums. There are some that were in the Coventry area historically. These types of particularly the 2-bedroom units generate, you know, as I said before, five school-age children per 100 units. The 1-bedroom units typically don't generate any school-age children. So, you know, just applying the straight numbers, we saw numbers of only 2 students in those 35 2-bedroom units out of the 92. I'd like to follow up on what you had, Mark, in your opening comments. We had some discussions with the applicants a couple days ago, and they have a lot of experience with these types of projects. As I think you said, there was over 6,000, almost 7,000 units that they manage. So they have a pretty good feel for, depending on how they build these units, what they put in for amenities, what it may or may not attract for their tenants. And so based on that, in looking at the census of Woodland number 1, which is nearby, I would probably tell you that that number is low. I would tell you that it could most definitely be a much higher number. It might be 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 students that could be residents in those 35 2-bedroom apartments. So we know that it's already showing a deficit to the community on an annual basis. So, and that will fluctuate year to year. And so basically this is a point of information for fiscal impact. The revenue is more or less set by looking at the 8% of gross rent. So when you have a project that has artificially, so to speak, a lower rental than market, when they collect taxes or assess taxes, they're using a much lower gross rental number. So it's going to always produce far less money to the community than if these were for sale condominiums, where they might be selling at, say, 200,000 a piece. That would generate considerably more tax money, and that would offset you know, school-age children and other municipal expenses. So these types of projects are typically not going to be a revenue plus to the community, but the benefit is, you know, a considerable number of low and moderate income housing units being added to 10%. It's providing, again, getting back to the comprehensive plan, housing choices to your residents. Really, it's a rare development to see this many units in all low moderate coming into a community, but that's what the fiscal tells us. And you know, we have opportunity. We can talk about that in a little more detail, and the folks from the applicant can give you those same census that or what they see at different locations on what a site may or may not generate for school-aged children. I'll just leave you one last thought on that. One of the things that more or less dictates that is what does the project site offer for a family that may have a child? Why would they choose to live there or not live there? And in many cases, it has to do with what's there for amenities or for those children in that age group to have available to them. So in this instance, I believe they're going to have a few amenities that a family with one child there might be more satisfied with, because a lot of these large building, multifamily buildings are really more targeted to empty nesters or singles or couples without children. And that's more likely what you're going to see. But in this instance, they're, with a couple of amenities that they're proposing, you could have more children there just because it would be more suitable for a family to live there for a while. They may not choose to live there, 18 years while they have a child in that age group, but they might choose to live there for part of that. So I hope that helps.
All right, did the net loss to the town calculation include revenues that the town will be receiving from impact fees and sewer assessment fees?
No, I did not include that. And I know that in your application package, I believe those numbers are spelled out to the community. They are considerable numbers. They are one-time fees as the project gets built, but they are considerable. But no, my analysis did not include that.
Okay. I have no further questions of this witness, and I don't have any further witnesses. I would just ask that all of their reports be entered as exhibits in this proceeding.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And the only other issue that I wanted to, or point I wanted to make, is that we do intend to build this project in 2 phases. And I had a email exchange with Mr. Crossman, who said that we can deal with that issue, at the preliminary phase of this, and not at this phase, but just to put on the record that we do in fact intend to phase this, because financing is dependent upon funding cycles with Rhode Island Housing. And we've got a commitment for funding for one building, but we may have to wait a while for funding for the second building. And we should have more information for you when we reach the preliminary stage of this application. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant, its attorney? Anybody on the board at all have a question? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open public hearing. I have a motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Mr. Clunian makes a motion to open public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second, Carl.
Mattson second it.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Aye.
Mr. Kenny,
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Isakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz,
Aye.
Mr. Clunian,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Okay, public hearing is now open. Mr. Crossman?
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to be heard on this application here this evening? I will ask it one more time. There are no hands that are raised. There are only 3 people in attendance. And I know all 3 of them. So is there anybody in attendance who would like to speak for or against this application this evening? Mr. Chairman, I have nobody who would like to speak or ask a question here this evening.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second it.
Who closed public hearing, please? Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny made a motion to close public hearing. Mr. Pacelli seconded that motion. Do a quick roll call. Mr. Reyes,
Yes.
Mr. Kenny,
Yes.
Mr. Porcelli,
Aye.
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Mattson. Mr. Mattson,
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski,
Aye.
Ms. Lubritz,
Aye.
Mr. Colonian,
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. So public hearing is now closed. Or anything you'd like to add from the board or from the applicant? Go ahead, Mr. Colonian.
I did take some time and I did spend some time reading the planning director's report. There is a reference, I see most of the waivers, I think they're all self-explanatory, but there was a reference in here to town of Coventry. Maybe I could rephrase the question. I saw one memo from Bruce Hagerman, the town engineer. I did not see anything from anyone else, Public Works, although the report refers to other items, and I can't seem to put my finger on it. So is there anything else, Mr. Oh yeah, refer to attached documents from each department. Stipulations for consideration by DBW and the town engineer. All I have is the town engineer doing the peak flow assessment for the sewers.
That is correct, sir. And I personally called the Public Works Director to ask him about this, and he had no comments. He said because basically this property, it's all private. So he did not have anything to offer at this time.
Okay, that's all. I just wanted to make sure. So the only waivers that are being requested, or relief for that matter, are those that are contained in your report from pages 11 through, I guess it's probably 14.
Hold on, let me see. 11.
That
would be correct.
Okay, so nothing new has come in since then. The issue with the phases, is that something that needs to be addressed?
It does not, and I'll tell you because on all projects like this, they get master plan approval first, and then at the preliminary plan stage, they ask for preliminary plan approval and they ask for the project to be phased.
Okay.
That way, and the reason for that at the preliminary phase is so they can record, say, phase 1 and proceed to final on phase 1. But phase 2 is still vested with preliminary, and they don't have to record it for final, and they've got 2 years to do so.
Okay.
So we'll deal with that at the preliminary plan stage.
Okay.
As far as the engineering report, if the pump station, has that been determined if that needs to be upgraded?
My conversations with Mr. Hageman were that the town has engaged Weston and Sampson to perform an analysis of that pump station, which I believe is undergoing as we speak, to determine the capacity and if any upgrades, et cetera, are needed.
And who would incur the cost of that if it needs to be upgraded? With the town?
Well, the pump station is owned by the town. I'm not sure at this time, but it's fair to say that the town owns the pump station.
Okay. And some of the waivers, we as a planning board cannot waive. That would be due to the council to waive those, correct?
Well,
Like
I don't believe they were asking for any waivers that were going to require council. I didn't identify any in my staff report.
That's correct.
I have a question too on the stipulation on the 1 unit sewer assessment at 12.9 and the 91 other units at 64.50. Was that a court decision?
Yes, as it says in my report, it interprets the stipulation of the consent judgment. That was taken right out of the consent judgment from Judge Stern, and that's how I interpreted it. And 1 unit at 12.9 and 91 units at 6450 for a total of 586,950 for the sewer assessments.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the board have any questions? I don't see any questions. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll take a stab at it. Some of this may be a little redundant and and lengthy, but I want to make sure that I capture everything.
Mr. Colonian, before you proceed, can I just start?
Sure.
What I would do is I would go to my findings of fact sheets,
Yes.
because I labeled it all, and then I would go back to the waivers and just identify the waivers that you're looking.
I've got everything tabbed, Russell.
Well, you said you were gonna take a shot, and I just wanted to help you out, sir. I will go away now.
Okay.
Mr. Clooney, I have full confidence in this. You've done this many times. I wouldn't call it a stab.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the master plan submission for a comprehensive permit application by Halkeen Management for property owned by HK Woodland 3 LLC, located at New Sneck Hill Road and Woodland Drive, further identified as Assessors Plat 27, Lot 150, in a planned unit development zone consisting of approximately 19.2 acres of vacant land. The applicant is proposing to construct two 62,880 plus or minus square foot residential structures designated for 92 units, with 56 one-bedroom units and 36 two-bedroom units for a combined total of 92 units. The project is a comprehensive permit application in which 100% of the proposed units will remain affordable at 60% AMI or below for a period of not less than 30 years. The proposed development is consistent with the local needs identified in the local comprehensive community plan, with particular emphasis on the community's affordable housing plan, and or has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. It's consistent with the local comprehensive plan, affordable housing plan. Considerations are that Coventry's affordable housing rate by the state's definitions is approximately 5.35% compared with 8.3% in Rhode Island overall. The town of Coventry and the Coventry Housing Authority should continue to secure all available resources to provide housing for low and moderate income groups. This project provides for an additional 92 apartments for low and moderate income groups. The subject parcel has already been identified in the town of Coventry's affordable housing plan as an appropriate location for an affordable housing project. The proposed development is in compliance with the standards and provisions of the municipality zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and or were expressly varied or waived local concerns that have been affected by the relief granted do not outweigh the state and local need for low and moderate income housing. The subject parcel has already been identified in the town of Coventry's affordable housing plan as an appropriate location. The project is located within an existing apartment complex and is in compliance with the requirements for the planned unit district. All low and moderate income housing units proposed are integrated throughout the development and are compatible in scale and architectural style to any market rate units within the project, although there are none, and will be built and occupied prior to or simultaneous with the construction and occupancy of any market rate units, had there been any. The proposed project is providing Coventry with 92 low to moderate income units, which is 100%. There will be no significant negative environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown on the final plan with all required conditions for approval. Let me see, the project does not appear to have significant environmental impacts from the proposed development shown. It's repetitive, I'm sorry. There will be no significant negative impacts on the health and safety. There will be no significant negative impacts on the health and safety of current or future residents of the community in areas located but not limited to safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, provision of emergency services, sewage disposal, availability of potable water, adequate surface water runoff, and the preservation of natural, historical, or cultural features that contribute to the attractiveness of the community. All proposed land developments and all subdivisions will have adequate and permanent physical access to public street in accordance with the requirements of General Law 45-23-60, Section 5. The proposed development will not result in the creation of individual lots with any physical constraints to development that building on those lots according to pertinent regulations and building standards would be impractical unless created only as permanent open space or permanently reserved for public purpose on the approved recorded plans. This approval will be subject to the following relief in the form of waiver requests. The following items will not be required until preliminary plan approval, which would be the location of percolation test holes identified. These are items numbered. I'll give you the numbers off the checklist to make it easier. 26, the location of groundwater determined test holes. 32, the proposed location and number of permanent bounds and corner markers. 35, proposed location, if any, for the connection with existing water supply, stormwater, sanitary sewer systems, or notation that wells and ISDS locations as proposed. Proposed construction access roads or routes. Number 44, location and dimensions of all proposed utilities within and immediately adjacent to the subdivision. 48, the proposed location and number of catch basins and manholes. Number 49, the proposed location and total length by size of all water pipes and laterals. Number 50, proposed location and total length by size of all drain pipes. 51, proposed location, number of species of street trees as required in the regulations. 66, the approximate cubic yards of rock and ledge excavation, yards to fill to be brought on site, and yards of gravel excavation to be removed. 74, written confirmation from RIDEM pursuant to the RIDEM rules and regulations governing the enforcement of Freshwater Wetlands Act and any subsequent amendments thereto. 76, written confirmation that Kent County Water Authority has reviewed the plan and is able to provide water without individual pneumatic pumps to all proposed parcels at a pressure of no less than 35 PSI in the street. An updated letter from Kent County Water Authority stating that they have seen the final plans, approved them, and will supply water without individual pneumatic pumps with a minimum of 35 PSI at the street to the development upon recording. 106, a landscape plan showing all significant clearing of land, removal of vegetation, revegetation, or landscaping showing buffer areas, screening, fencing, plantings, and a schedule for landscaping pursuant to Article 17 on streets right of way and upon individual lots if proposed. On number 107, an approved soil erosion sediment control plan. Following items are also added to this relief. The comprehensive permit checklist will be deferred to preliminary plan stage, such as RIDEM permit, sediment, and erosion control plan and quantities. A definitive list of checklist waivers is listed as follows: scaled architectural drawings and floor plans, typical units, typical elevations and sections, identifying the construction type, exterior finished materials, signed and certified in accordance with the Rhode Island State Building Code, an erosion and sediment control plan in the same scale as the site development plan or subdivision plan, and the local fire district's written assessment of water flow requirements. The following zoning ordinance waiver per section 1220 of the town's zoning regulations. The Woodland Manor 3 project does not meet the town's regulation for 2 spaces per unit for a single, 2 or multifamily unit as shown on the table in the project plans. Therefore, the Woodland Manor 3 project has requested a variance for the for the provided parking as part of Woodland Manor 3 project, and that was discussed at 1.7 spaces per unit. General waivers of fees by the Planning Commission. The applicant requests a waiver of all fees and assessments which exceed those provided in certain consent judgment in a case entitled Evergreen Estates Managing Corporation versus Town of Coventry, case number 14-0426 in the Rhode Island Superior Court. This waiver is made without prejudice to the right of the applicant to contest the imposition of any fees and assessments in which the Town of Coventry approved. The town shall not assess a fair share development fee or an impact fee on any of the affordable units as defined in Rhode Island General Law 45-53-4, Section 5, up to and including but no greater than 30% of the 144 units of Woodland 3. The Coventry Planning Commission Department interprets this to mean that the applicant will not be obligated to pay fair share development fee on 28 of the units, which is 30%, but will be required to pay $5,854 per unit for 64 units, which is 70%, for an estimated total of $374,656. Also, Coventry may assess and Evergreen shall be obligated to pay sewer assessments upon each and every unit developed as part of Woodland 3 according to the town ordinance as follows: $12,900 for the first apartment unit and $6,450 for each additional apartment unit. We've calculated that to be approximately $599,850. That figure is subject to change due to the annual consumer price index adjustments. Coventry may also charge, and Evergreen shall be obligated to pay sewer connection fees. The Woodland 3 development plan approved in 1976 found to be vested by the court and specifies there shall be 6 24 building units. The connection fees are $100 permit fee and $200 inspection fee. We interpret this to mean that the applicant will be required $300 based on the 2 buildings that are currently proposed. In addition, let me see this right here. Let's consider application for variance. Planning Commission. Okay. And the only other item I have is the one that I referenced before, which be where the approval is pending the outcome of the study on the sewage treatment plan that the town's currently engaged Weston and Sampson to conduct. And I would also like to incorporate the planning director's report into my motion.
Hey, I have a favorable motion by Mr. Colonian. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Kenny. I'll do a roll call. Mr. Reyes?
Mr. Flynn, before you do the roll call,
Yes.
Mr. Colonian, your last statement about the interpret stipulation for the building connection fees, it's $300 per building for a total of $600. You had just stated $300.
Okay, so it's $300 per building at $600. Just to clarify, I'll amend my motion accordingly.
Okay, the motion has been amended.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kenny. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a roll call. Mr. Reyes?
Aye.
Mr. Kenny?
Aye.
Mr. Pacelli?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Mattson?
Aye.
Mr. Ozakowski?
Aye.
Ms. Lukowitz?
Aye.
Mr. Colonian?
Aye.
Chairman Flynn also says aye. Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second.
I have motion, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Night all.
Aye.